It's been just 3 days since I took over this dead kid's body, and I'm already enduring the absolute worst week of my afterlife. Let me set the scene for you. I'm stuck living in a run-down wooden shack, located in the absolute middle of nowhere. It's 5 kilometers of muddy road to the closest town, and 3 kilometers to a dark forest. That literally sounds like it wants to eat you alive. The air inside reeks of singed herbs, worn-out leather, and the unmistakable stench of a human organ, completely shutting down. And as for that last smell, well, that belongs to old John. I suppose you could call him my legal guardian, but in reality, I was just cheap labor that he dragged away from the orphanage 5 years ago. Chopping wood, skinning game, cooking terrible meals. A truly wholesome father-son relationship. Except right now, old John is lying on his deathbed. All because yesterday, he decided to pick a fight with a mutated steel bristle boar that was as big as a small truck. He managed to blind one of its eyes, but it tore a massive hole right in his gut. I call that a tie, but the scoreboard says otherwise, considering his internal organs are rotting black, and he smells like a trash container behind a butcher shop. Stop wasting your time, Victor. He wheezes out, bloody froth bubbling at his mouth, like the world's most horrific cappuccino. Suddenly, his eyes open wide, and not in a peaceful, I see heaven kind of way, but a terrified, something horrifying is coming look. That boar, it tracked the scent of my decaying flesh. It's right outside. Oh, fantastic. Just fantastic. Just what I needed. And sure enough, right out in the middle of the thunderstorm, I hear heavy footsteps. Thud, thud, thud. Something utterly massive is plowing through the thick mud, heading straight for our wooden coffin of cabin. However, old John isn't done with his dramatic last words just yet. He grips my wrist with so much force that his nails dig into my skin, launching into a speech about his lifelong regrets. How he almost became a Silver Star Ranger in his younger days, but fell just short of it, wasting the rest of his life rotting away in this shack, consumed by bitterness. Take the blackwood bough in the cabinet, live, and just like that, he dies, staring blankly with wide eyes toward a glory he never achieved. Talk about dramatic timing, thunder strikes, lightning flashes, and there I am, completely frozen, trying to digest the fact that I'm now totally alone in the wild, without a single survival skill, while a bloodthirsty monster lurks outside. Right on cue, boom, the entire front door warps inward. It doesn't just swing open, it literally warps, as if someone tried to fold a 2-inch solid oak door in half. Boom! Crack! With the second impact, the door bolt snaps completely, sending loose bricks flying everywhere, and a head forces its way inside. A giant, black-armored skull as big as a washing machine, cramming through the entrance like a military tank, trying to parallel park inside a phone booth. This beast is far too massive to fit through the doorway, leaving it literally stuck, violently thrashing around. And with every violent bash, the whole place groans, like it's on the verge of collapsing. One of its eyes is now a hollow socket, thanks to old John, while the other locks onto me with pure, unfiltered, I'm wiping out your entire family line energy. I immediately grab a pitchfork, a simple farm tool, literally the one I use for digging up turnips. Shout, get lost, and thrust it straight at its forehead. Clang. Metal hits metal. Its bristles are basically full-body steel armor. My pitchfork just bounces off completely, like I tossed a wooden stick at an armored tank, sending a shockwave that makes my hands go completely numb. Needless to say, the beast doesn't appreciate that forehead jab. It flies into a frenzy, tearing down the doorframe with its massive tusks, causing half of the roof to instantly collapse. Tiles and rain shower down all around us. It forces the front half of its massive body inside. But right then, I notice something critical. It's roaring at me with its jaws wide open. The mouth is soft, no armor inside. Taste this, I yell, and throw the pitchfork, like a javelin, right down its wide open maw. A bullseye. It plunges deep into its tongue and gums. Glorious. But the wild pig goes completely berserk, thrashing its head sideways and snapping the wooden handle in two, and the broken piece clotheslines me right across the shoulder. I go flying backward into old John's cabinet like a helpless ragdoll. I'm pretty sure half my bones just got relocated to another zip code. But guess what was resting inside that cabinet? The weapon. Old John's prized blackwood hunting bow, the ultimate pride of his entire life. Just sitting there, still smelling of pine resin. I instantly snag it and grab an arrow. The monster has spat out the broken fork and squeezed its entire body inside. Now it's bloody. Glowing red hooves are aggressively scraping the floor, prepping for a final lethal charge. There's only 5 meters between us, a distance even I can't miss. Just 5 meters, but here lies the real problem. I'm a total weakling who can barely pull this heavy bow. Even halfway back, a half-drawn arrow against this thing's heavy plating is going to be like snapping a rubber band at a steel fridge. That's when it dawns on me. That blue glowing prompt that flashed right as old John passed away. All right, I got a cheat system now. When I touched his body, I absorbed a special trait tag. Basically, an unfinished silver star. A lifetime of old John's deepest regrets, condensed into a raw, magical power-up. And right now, it's sitting in my inventory, marked as ready to enchant. Old John, I seriously hope your deathbed grudge is powerful, because I'm about to cash it in right now. I mentally slam that glowing orb directly into the bow. Instantly, the bow goes wild. Silver-white energy fractures violently across its frame, resembling lightning frozen directly into the wood. The weapon is literally destroying itself. Just to grant me one ultimate god-tier shot. Suddenly, drawing the bowstring feels smooth as butter. No, wait, it's drawing itself. Yanking my arm back way past a full draw, far beyond any normal human limit. The system alerts. 400% piercing effect. Weapon will self-destruct after firing. One shot. One single chance. The bow shatters after this. The boar charges, now just 1 meter away. I can literally smell its breath, and it reeks like death, rotting trash, and a lifetime of bad hygiene. I stand my ground without dodging, and stare straight into that single enraged eye. The moment I release the string, the bow's release completely drowns out the thunder. It didn't just fire. It blew up as the arrow turned into a silver meteor so quick that it didn't even leave an afterimage behind. It slams directly into the boar's remaining eye and blasts clean out through the back of its skull, leaving brain splatters everywhere, giving the wall right behind it a fresh, gruesome paint job in red and white. The boar's massive body keeps sliding forward, from sheer momentum like a runaway freight train, and crashes right down at my feet, making the whole floor literally bounce. It twitches once, twice, and then goes completely still. Critical hit. Brain destroyed, beast neutralized. And honestly, Victor is almost dead too. Here I'm sitting on the floor, my right hand torn apart and bleeding because, yeah, the bow literally exploded in my hands when I shot it. Old John's prized heirloom. His ultimate pride and joy turned to literal splinters. My left hand is just holding a broken piece of the grip, like some pathetic little stick, but hey, objective complete. Old John's body is untouched. Taking down that boar would be a trophy kill, even for an experienced adventurer. The kind of story you brag about in the tavern. For weeks, and I pulled it off as a total beginner, armed with a pitchfork and a kamikaze bow. Seriously, someone give me a medal. Then I reach out and touch the dead boar's hide, because apparently I have zero self-preservation instinct when it comes to touching dead monsters, and trigger a green tag labeled Babel Barrier. I regret it instantly as a tsunami of unhinged, whispering voices slams directly into my head, sounding like 10,000 insane radios, all tuned into the Eldritch Horror channel. Dense gray fog completely consumes my vision, and through the static, something is shrieking. Not an angry scream, but that terrifying, my soul is being melted away kind of shriek. My sanity meter plummets from green straight to flashing red in less than half a second. I was a hair's breadth away from going completely insane when my cheat system UI flashes like a flashbang and instantly mutes the noise. It's like it reached inside my head, grabbed the volume knob on those demonic whispers, and cranked it straight to 0. Talk about a golden finger really pulling its weight tonight. But the sudden relief washes over me so hard my body just goes, yeah, we're done here. Time to sleep. And I collapse backward like a sack of rocks. The last thing I hear is the ceiling deciding, yeah, I'm giving up too. Crash. The rest of the roof completely caves in, sending debris, rain, and shattered roof tiles, raining down all over the place. By pure strokes of dumb luck, I landed right in a triangular gap between Old John's heavy oak bed frame and the corner wall, literally the only safe, intact pocket in this entire disaster zone. As the collapsing wooden beam gets wedged against the bed frame, putting together a makeshift shelter, right over myself and Old John's body. It's like the universe said, I'll trash your house, break your weapon, and strip your pride, but hey, I'll spare your life for now. Then came total darkness and blackout. Cut to morning. Bright sunlight, piercing right through my eyelids like an unwelcome alarm. I slowly open my eyes, and I instantly regret being conscious, because my head is throbbing so hard. It feels like I chugged a gallon of toxic waste. Sunbeams filter through the massive crater, where my roof used to be, and the storm is finally cleared. The air actually feels crisp and fresh. That is, if you can ignore the vile stench of rotting pig and dried blood, which I definitely can't. I shove off the heap of shattered wood and broken tiles that was apparently serving as my blanket, and do a quick body check. Yeah, everything aches, but all my limbs are intact, so I'll call that a win. As for the cabin, it's a total disaster zone. Water standing ankle-deep everywhere. Furniture completely turned into firewood. And smack in the middle of the room is that massive boar corpse, sprawled out like a stranded whale, taking up practically the entire space. Even in death, with its broken tusk and needle-sharp metallic bristles, this beast still radiates pure, I'll mess you up energy. I drag myself up by grabbing onto the bed and turn back toward old John. He's still laying there, completely dry from the rain, thanks to that little triangular frame I built. His woolen blanket hasn't gotten wet at all, but those milky, lifeless eyes are still wide open, gazing straight up through the gaping hole in the roof, as if he's waiting for something. A sharp pang hits my chest. I step over to him, unbothered by the heavy stench of medicine and death, clinging to his body, and place my hand over his face. You never wanted a real student. You just wanted free labor, but hey, I used your bow. So that makes me at least half your apprentice, right? The boar is dead, and I survived. I gently close his eyelids. His expression softens, like he's finally at peace, looking like he's just fast asleep. Rest easy, old man. Now, looking back at the monster in broad daylight, this thing looks even more terrifying. Your typical steel bristle boar is around 5 feet long. Aggressive, sure, but still just a normal wild animal. This freak, though, easily double the size, and not from bulking up. This is straight-up biological horror mutation. Its muscular structure looks completely deformed and twisted, but the absolute creepiest detail, sprouting directly from its back and forehead, are clusters of dark, purplish-black crystals. The surrounding veins are bulging out, and web-like patterns turn a sickly, pale gray. So it really was corrupted, just like I thought. It instantly brings back those dark whispers I felt touching it last night. Back at the tavern in Blackstone Town, veteran adventurers would always speak in quiet, hushed tones about the darkest depths of this realm, the infamous Gray Whisper Forest. Rumor has it that ancient ruins sit right at its center, and not a single person who stepped inside ever made it out alive. There's something lurking in there, some nameless, evil entity that spews its malevolent energy out through the mist. Any beast foolish enough to stray too far into the zone starts hearing voices, loses its mind, and transforms into, well, this exact wild boar that wandered into the deep territory, got its brain fried by cosmic horror broadcast waves, and instead of dropping dead like standard creatures, it survived the initial surge of corruption and sprouted. Freaking crystal armor plates. I gently poke one of those purple spikes with my broken bow stem. Thump, clink, clink. It clinks just like solid glass, so no wonder old John got destroyed. This isn't your average, everyday beast. This guy is a full-on elite mob, which explains why it dropped a green rank loot tag, rather than a common white one. So the drops actually scale with the fight's difficulty. Good information to have, though. It really would have been nice to know that before. This beast attempted to redesign my living room using my own guts. All right, disaster averted. The pig is down, and it's time to actually go over the operational guide. On my cheat system, I bring up the interface and hold on. There's an entire skill tree tab here that I totally overlooked last night, simply because I was fighting for my absolute life. Allow me to read off my character stats to you all. It's a truly humbling experience. Basic archery, not even novice status. You know how to grip a bow and line up a shot, but whether your arrow hits anything is completely in divine hands. Mastery level, 34 out of 100. Honestly, that's generous. Basic swordsmanship, not even beginner level. You carry a sharp iron blade around, but to any bystander, you look like an idiot trying to swat flies with a poker rod. Mastery level, 2 out of 100. Wow, my own system is straight up roasting me. Trap crafting, level 1. You picked up basic snares from old John, though you regularly end up trapping your own fingers. Mastery level, 20 out of 100. Wilderness survival, level 1. You can spot most lethal mushrooms and locate fresh water sources. 45 out of 100. Hey, that's actually not bad. Skinning and butchering, level 2. This is what you spent the past 5 years grinding. You could practically skin a hare with your eyes closed. 50 out of 100. So my one real-world talent is being a professional animal. Stripper, gear maintenance, level 1. Using whetstones, oiling up leather gear, and refletching damaged arrows. You're not going to craft mythical weapons anytime soon, But you can keep broken trash from falling apart. Just a tiny bit longer. 68 out of 100. 5 straight years of brutal labor. And this pathetic list is all I have to show for it? There's literally not a single combat talent. Above the tier of a toddler swinging a stick around. Then again, in a real life or death situation, knowing which wild mushrooms won't instantly poison you is way more valuable than flashy sword techniques anyway. Now, about that green tag item I looted off the boar, the bubble shield, the very thing that nearly fried my brain last night. What am I supposed to do with it? I take a look around these ruins. The front entrance is obliterated, the walls are mostly gone, and the roof is caved in halfway. I am literally camping out inside an open-air display labeled Free All-You-Can-Eat Buffet for Monsters. Right now, I need defense, not firepower. Suddenly, a crazy thought crosses my mind. What if I enchant my actual skills instead of weapons? In my mind, I drag that glowing green orb right over to my wilderness survival skill and smash the two together. The sphere dissolves into the skill name, just like butter melting on a scorching skillet, and instantly, a new ability unlocks. Level 2 Static Camouflage. It works like a reversed bubble barrier. Rather than keeping out the voices of madness, you broadcast them toward low-intelligence creatures. You aren't a person anymore. You're just ambient background noise, like static buzz on a dead TV screen. As long as you stay still or move super slowly, beasts and monsters will naturally ignore your presence, while your tracks get totally scrambled and become practically impossible to track down. Proficiency level, 75 out of 100. This fusion didn't just forge a brand new ability. It upgraded the old one and handed me a proficiency meter that's already mostly filled. That's literally like trading in a bicycle and walking away with a brand new motorcycle filled with gas. This is infinitely better than slapping the enchantment onto a weapon. When I used that white tag on old John's bow earlier, the bow pulled off one neat trick before blowing up in my face. Enchanting a skill, though, that's a permanent buff. 0 self-destruction, plus it leveled up. Yeah, green tags are built. On another level, note to self, prioritize skills over weapons every single time, unless I'm right on the verge of dying again, which, considering my luck, could easily be this Tuesday. Alright, time to run through the survival checklist. Step 1. Bury old John. I dug out a grave along the shaded hillside behind the cabin, using a pair of wooden planks because my actual shovel yeeted itself straight into another dimension. During last night's brutal brawl with that monster pig, I laid him to rest with his leather armor still intact, placing the shattered pieces of his bow right next to him. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, I muttered under my breath. Mostly because it's the only funeral line I can actually remember from my past life. No grave marquer, no tombstone. Out here in the wild, a fresh dirt mound is practically an open dinner bell for grave robbers, flesh-eating ghouls, and board goblins. For a guy who spent his entire life just begging to be left alone, fading into total obscurity is the absolute best final gift I can offer him. I planted prickly blackberry vines right over his spot and dusted the area with wood ash to mask the scent of death. Rest in peace, you stubborn old bastard. Step 2. Claim the loot. Hidden under a loose brick right near the fireplace. Jackpot. It's old John's secret life savings. 35 shiny silver coins and a handful of loose coppers. It's definitely not early retirement money, but it's more than enough to get my foot in the door of Blackstone Town. I also snagged 2 sets of linen clothes that only reek slightly of mold, which, honestly, is a massive step up from my current dreads of dried pig blood and pure misery. Step 3. Deal with the pig carcass. Time to put that level 2 skinning mastery to work. The moment I trigger the skill, everything instantly clicks. The dead beast stops looking like a terrifying, bloody monster and transforms into a perfectly clear anatomical diagram, highlighting muscle fibers and cut lines, articulations and joints, and dermal thickness all lit up like a surgical HUD overlay. My hands were basically operating on muscle memory as the small blade traced the fascia lines with dead-on precision. Half an hour down the line, the massive black boar pelt slipped off in one clean piece. And then came the real payoff. I carefully extracted those deep purple and black gems embedded along its spine. Whatever these corrupted crystals actually are, they're bound to fetch a pretty penny. I also sawed off that unbroken half-meter tusk, which is practically a natural-born spear, carved out some choice tenderloin for dinner, seared it right over the open flames, and devoured it like I was starving for 3 straight days. Mostly because I actually was. Cured the rest into jerky for the journey ahead. One final glance back at the half-ruined shack, One last look at that completely ordinary tangle of thorny bushes right behind it. Farewell. I fired up static camouflage and took off. A shimmering, invisible wave washed straight over me. Into every single bird, bug, and beast around. The human lugging the massive pack completely vanished, replaced by pure ambient background noise. Just rustling leaves in the wind and meaningless static. Honestly pretty fitting for a total nobody from another world. Walking away from a dead guy's broken house. Hauling every single thing he owned in a sack on his back. Completely unseen by every living thing in sight. Chapter 1 of Victor's grand adventure officially wrapped. Now let's see what's waiting in town, 5 kilometers down a muddy road. Sounds like a breeze, right? Just a nice casual afternoon stroll, think again. Dead wrong, though I almost wished I actually was dead. Let me break down my current situation. I'm just a teenager sitting at a 5.5 fitness stat, which my system graciously translates as, your sole advantage is simply being young. Hauling a boar hide that feels like a rolled-up rug. Forged out of solid iron, a tusk as long as my arm. A bunch of purple doom crystals and random spoils. Oh, and as for my stealth ability, it burns through stamina, which I desperately lack. If you were a rabbit chilling in the thicket, watching the path, you wouldn't spot a single thing. Just a completely empty trail with the occasional squelch of an unseen boot stepping right into mud puddles. And that's me, the most running on fumes ghost on the planet. The stealth itself is top tier, by the way, but it suffers from one massive flaw. The moment I feel any intense emotion, the camouflage starts glitching out, fear brings a flicker, excitement brings a flicker, and the sudden urge to scream. Because a pebble wedged into my boot causes another flicker. Perfect case in point, 10 meters ahead of me. A wild, mangy-looking hound. A vicious stray with straight-up killer eyes. Nosing around a dead rat. I'm completely frozen behind a tree, holding my breath. White-knuckling my tiny skinning blade. Sweat dripping directly into my eyes. Yet I can't even wipe it away, since sudden movements will shatter my stealth. The hound snaps its head up, its yellow eyes scanning right across my spot, and my heart completely stops. It gazes right through me like I'm a piece of furniture. Its gaze drifts past and settles on the tree behind me, before going right back to munching its rat like I don't even exist. Inside my head, fireworks are going off. A full-on victory parade with a whole orchestra playing. On the outside, though, instant vertigo hits, because celebrating burns up mental energy, and mental energy happens to be the power source for stealth. This ability is fueled by absolute composure. And since I'm anything but calm, that's a massive issue. 7 whole hours. 7 hours just to cover 5 kilometers. A grandmother using a walker could have lapped me twice by now. Every single time my stamina completely hit zero, I just collapsed behind a boulder or underneath a tree, waiting around until feeling returned to my legs, before firing up stealth again and zombie shuffling. For a few hundred more meters. Setbacks aside at long last. Just as the sunset painted the sky in shades of a crime scene, I finally spotted it, the wooden guard tower of Blackstone Town, sticking out over the horizon like the most beautiful, hideous landmark I've ever laid eyes on. I dragged my broken body over to a boundary marker, sitting roughly 200 meters from the entrance. Disengaged my stealth skill and just took a deep breath. Man, my lungs. It felt like somebody had taken coarse sandpaper to the inside of them. Time for a quick gear check. Linen shirt is totally drenched through with sweat. Presentable? Not really, looking no better than a blood-soaked survivor of a boar attack. Well, marginally better. Blackstone Town is less of a real town and more like a fortified campsite filled with actual buildings. It's a border outpost sitting right beside a cursed forest. So naturally, it draws in all sorts of adventurers, shady traders, and criminals whose wanted posters haven't even made it out this far yet. The guard stationed at the gate won't even bat an eye at you, as long as you aren't green-skinned or leaking ominous dark magic smoke. You're good to go. I slipped inside behind a few lumber wagons and finally set foot on an actual paved road. For the very first time in this new life. Rowdy tavern noise, blacksmiths pounding away, and ladies of questionable profession shouting down from second-story windows. Ah, civilization, baby. Hey, isn't that old John's little brat? A drunken foghorn of a voice blares out to my left. Lounging on a wooden barrel right outside the Lame Wolf Tavern is Barney, the town's self-appointed king of gossip, a professional moocher and a world-class alcoholic. He used to grab drinks with old John all the time, mostly because old John was always footing the bill. He's sporting greasy leather armor, and his nose is bright red like a ripe tomato. Then his eyes lock straight onto the loot strapped to my back, and they nearly pop right out of his skull. By the gods, is it a steel bristleboar hide? And that tusk? Where's old John? Spit it out, tell me everything. His loud shouting immediately draws a crowd. And now half the street is glaring right at me. Right at this moment. My brilliant, pre-rehearsed master plan, the one I practiced 500 times along the road, kicks into action. You see, here's the deal. I'm just a helpless orphan with zero combat skills, hauling around crazy expensive loot in a rough frontier town packed with morally flexible scoundrels. If I just walk up and casually go, the old man's dead and I'm all on my own, I might as well just carve a target on my back. So instead of looking like easy prey, I put on my best overworked, yet proud apprentice face and say, "Good afternoon, Uncle Barney. Old John is doing amazing, actually better than ever." I project my voice so the whole crowd hears me. That wild boar crashed straight into our cabin last night. And right when all hope seemed lost, old John pulled off the most legendary shot of his life. Directly through the skull. A single arrow, instant kill. Right at that moment, I pause for maximum dramatic effect. In reality, I'm envisioning myself firing that shot, looking like an absolute badass. But hey, they don't need to know that. And that's when he finally felt his power break through. Barney's jaw instantly drops. His drunkenness is literally vanishing before my eyes. He didn't even stop to sleep. Packed his gear at dawn and headed straight for Frostwind City. He's going to take the Ranger Guild's official professional certification exam. Right now, while his momentum is at its peak, the entire place goes dead silent. The Ranger Guild exam, that's the ultimate ticket to becoming a true elite. A person of real standing. Someone who earns a title directly from the Lord's estate. In a world like this, that's equivalent to saying, your uncle just casually left to join NASA. A Silver Star Ranger. Barney stammers out, suddenly recalling every single drunk flex old John ever made. I give a careless shrug and point toward the massive pile of loot strapped to my back. So he sent me ahead to cash all this in and hold down the fort. You know how he operates. Don't go cluttering up my bag with extra trophies, kid. Perfection. Every line scripted, the logic completely airtight, and the emotional timing hit just right. Because the survival math here is straightforward. A helpless orphan carrying valuable gear equals an easy payout for any thug with a blade. But the apprentice of a guy about to become a licensed high-tier warrior? That's a poison pill that nobody in their right mind wants to swallow. I literally watched the expression shift on Barney's face in real time. That subtle spark of greed in his eyes. That jackpot, high-value loot, defenseless kid mindset instantly vanishes, replaced by the most absurdly fake, kiss-ass grin I've ever laid eyes on. He slaps my shoulder like we've been childhood besties. I totally called it. I always knew old John was destined for big things. His marksmanship was always unrivaled in this town. I kept telling everyone, man, when he gets back, I'm treating him to the finest rum in the house. Bro, you haven't bought old John a single drop of alcohol in your entire life. But hey, keep talking your talk. The bluff worked. My plot armor is locked in. Now, time to go cash in these boar parts. It's my first morning waking up in an actual bed, and my brain literally freezes for 3 whole seconds, trying to process why the air doesn't smell like rotting corpses. No mildew, no blood stench, no dead pig, just clean straw. A worn-out mattress under dusty rays filtering through cheap blinds. The very first thing I do is reach under my pillow. The coin is still safe. The chair is still wedged right under the door handle. No one ganked me in my sleep for spare change. That's a win in my book. First stop, Old Iron Tongs, the local leather trader. His real name is Hanson, but everyone uses the moniker, since he used to work as an army blacksmith. He's old John's drinking buddy, which makes him the exact guy to hook me up with a killer deal, without prying into my business. I unroll that massive mutant boar, hide right across his shop counter, and the guy nearly chokes on his morning tea. His hands are straight up shaking, as his fingers glide over the dark metallic, reddish surface, a genuine mutant species. He leans in real close, whispering like we're plotting high treason. So the rumors were real. That stubborn old bastard actually headshot this beast and broke through his limit. Showtime, baby. I put on my best bewildered apprentice act, making a face like I just remembered something terrifying. Uncle Hanson, you know how unhinged old John's temper is. He was still raging about the roof damage when he walked off. And as for that shot, I let my gaze drift off, looking totally dazed. I was so terrified, all I caught was a blinding flash of white light. And then this giant beast just hit the deck. I didn't dare ask a single thing. Hanson sharp inhales through his teeth so hard, I thought he pulled a neck muscle. And just like that, no haggling over damage parts. No, well, there's a tear on the backside. So I gotta cut the price by 30%. He hands over 3 gold coins and 50 silver pieces, like he's paying tribute to the nephew of a future warlord. If you took this to the capital, you'd fetch more, but here in Blackstone Town, nobody can match my rate. Consider 1 gold coin out of this as a favor. Just please, don't let your terrifying uncle come back mad at me. Call it fear tax, but hey, cash is cash. Next up, flog the tusks over at the weapon shop. More gold unlocked. Then came the main event. Those ominous purple crystals. I strolled right into the Adventurers Association, which is basically the DMV for Monster Hunters. Massive quest bored-looking receptionists, and absolute zero personality. The alchemist at the appraisal counter was pulling off his best. I couldn't care less about anything until I dumped those dark, purple crystals right onto his tray. His lifeless fish eyes instantly lit up. He tapped one with a glass rod. Clack. The chime echoed strangely, reverberating like it belonged to an entirely different dimension. Tier 1. Magical crystallization with minor psychic corruption. Radiation. He stared at me, showing zero curiosity about how a kid scored corrupted. Monster cores. A true professional. Mid-purity, but remarkably fresh and undamaged. Prime ingredients for berserker brews, or ingredients for dark magic spells. He didn't pry into where I got them, and I wasn't about to spill the details. It was an unspoken mutual understanding. 820 grams came out to 8 gold and 20 silver coins, minus a 50 silver fee for processing, of course. As I stepped out of the place, I patted my chest pocket and ran the numbers in my head. 14 gold coins, 14 whole gold pieces. In a world where an average family of 3 scrapes by on just a few gold coins a year, I literally went from penniless orphan to filthy rich in under 24 hours. All it took was a near-death experience, losing my shelter and putting a grumpy old man in the ground. Look, I'm no fool. I knew this was a one-time stroke of luck. I can't just go around hunting another mutant elite boar every single week, or I'd be dead before midweek. I need to convert this cash into real strength. So, off to the weapon shop. It was a modest shop featuring a sign that read practical gear. Now that's my kind of place. What are you looking for? A bow. A beginner. Friendly recurve bow. Nothing with too heavy a draw weight. Plus 2 quivers. And 100 arrows. The shopkeeper takes one look at my skinny arms, snatches a simple elm wood recurve bow off the rack, and plucks the string a few times. Black elm, 40-pound draw weight. Accurate up to 100 meters. Durable and built to last. 80 silver. Arrows are 2 copper pieces each. 100 of them will run you 1 silver and 50 copper. Throw in some finger guards and arm bracers too. He stares me down for a solid second, then dumps a set of rough leather guards onto the counter. Deal. Man, I love a guy who gets straight to the point. 30 minutes later, I made my way to the public training grounds on the west end of town. It was a massive, muddy field enclosed by wooden fences, lined with a row of straw targets, and required a 5 copper entry fee for an all-day pass. The area was packed with wannabe adventurers, hacking away at each other with wooden practice swords, and firing arrows at targets they kept completely missing. I picked a target tucked away in a corner, strapped on my gear, and channeled Old John's iconic side stance. Feet spread apart, arrow knocked, drawing back the string. In my head, I was replaying that legendary silver meteor strike, shot from 2 nights ago. Pure style, peak badass aura. Some guys resting nearby caught sight of my posture and perks up. Damn, this kid actually looks like he knows what he's doing. Twang. The arrow wobbled right off the bow like a drunk bird, carved a pathetic arc in the air, and planted itself straight into the dirt, right beside the wrong target. 20 meters of pure, unadulterated embarrassment. Someone snickered nearby. Hey, buddy, did your arrow just decide to become a pacifist? Oh, real hilarious, guys. Absolute comedy gold. I'm here all week. But here's the kicker. What they don't realize is that I'm not just shooting arrows for fun. I am grinding XP. I pull up my stat panel. Archery proficiency, 35 out of 100. It was sitting at 34 right before that embarrassing miss. Hey, progress is progress. It's still counted as practice. As long as that stat keeps climbing, I couldn't care less. Call me a fool all day long. My second shot barely nicks the extreme outer border of the target, literally clinging to a single strand of straw. Mastery jumps to 37. A whole 2 points just for making contact. All right, I get how this mechanic works now. The cleaner my posture and technique, the bigger the point boost. It's basically an instant feedback engine. With every single release, it's letting me know if my tiny tweak was on point or a total waste of effort. It's like having a personal trainer who only talks to me through a fill-up bar. Fix your stance. Points go up. Mess up, you get 0. All I have to do is double down on what yields results. So I just grind, and keep grinding the entire afternoon. Firing shot after shot, raising my elbow by an inch, adjusting my hand position by a fraction of an inch, regulating my breath, shifting my stance. By the second hour, the snickering completely died down. Because here's the mind-blowing part that freaked everyone out. I went from whiffing 9 out of 10 shots to connecting on 5 out of 10. And by the time the sun started setting, every single shot hit the mark. They weren't dead center hits yet, but they were consistently on target. 0 misses. For a guy who began the day planting arrows straight into the dirt, that's not a normal learning curve. Did this guy make a pact with the gods of archery? Kind of progress. Right around twilight, my arms completely gave out. I literally didn't have the strength to draw the bowstring one more time. Half of my arrows were completely ruined, exhausted, snapped in two, or buried deep in the mud from my embarrassing early attempts. I pulled up the interface one last time. Basic archery, level 1. You've grasped the proper rhythm of breathing and drawing. Snipping birds out of the sky is still out of reach, but any rabbits or grazing deer within range. Better start running. They're about to end up on your plate. Mastery, 3 out of 100. A brand new level, a fresh slate, and I'm ready to grind all over again. Suddenly, a soothing warmth spread straight through my exhausted arms, almost as if the system was giving me a gentle, restorative pat on the back for leveling up. So there I stood, watching the sunset, bow in hand, drenched in sweat, completely exhausted, and grinning like a total maniac. This took me right back to grinding video games on Earth. Except over here, these stat boosts are the real deal. My arms are legitimately getting more stable. My eyesight is actually getting sharper. We're not talking about fake XP rendered on a screen. This is my physical body literally leveling up. Honestly, I could easily get hooked on this. Cue the 10-day training montage. Hit that iconic Rocky theme song. My daily routine transformed into the single most monotonous routine ever. Just 2 fixed points connecting a single straight line. Wake up, grind. Pass out, repeat. At 6 sharp every single morning, I force down a massive plate of 2 pounds of eggs, drenched in melted butter, alongside a chunk of beef. So rare it's practically still mooing. Not because I'm some fine dining enthusiast, but because I crunch the numbers. This is the absolute baseline caloric intake, required to stop my muscles from literally wasting away off my bones. After the brutal physical hell I drag them through every day. 7 a.m. on the training grounds. I draw the bow until my arms are screaming, and swing the blade until my hands bleed. Then I repeat it 1,000 more times. I watch my blisters burst dry and harden into tough calluses, only for those calluses to split wide open and turn into fresh blisters. It's a never-ending cycle of agony. By 8 p.m., I drag myself back to the inn like a walking corpse, powered by pure pain, slathering my body with this foul green salve that smells straight out of the devil's armpit and stings like someone is ironing my flesh. Yet, it actually works because the next morning, the exact muscle damage that should have crippled me for weeks just completely disappears. The sports medicine in this fantasy world is brutal, but damn effective. And the gains? The gains are insane. Archery level 3. I don't even need to aim anymore. My body automatically calculates the wind speed and gravity for me. Knock, draw, release. It flows as naturally as taking a breath. Then there's swordsmanship level 2. The clashing of blades isn't just noise anymore. It's a rhythm, allowing me to spot openings in an enemy's guard. Up close, I'm a total nightmare to deal with now. 10 days ago, I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and now I'm basically a budget Robin Hood. However, the grind has hit a wall since yesterday. No matter how many perfect bullseyes I hit, even on moving targets, my progress bar barely moves an inch. Shooting static dummy. Targets can only take my level 3 archery so far. I desperately need actual field experience. And that's not even the worst of my problems right now. My biggest headache is that my cover story is falling apart. It's been almost 2 full weeks, and John still hasn't returned from his exam. Naturally, people are beginning to ask questions. At first, it was harmless banter like, "Hey kid, when is your sharpshooter uncle throwing his victory party?" I just smiled, played it off, and lied, claiming I got a letter 2 days ago saying he passed, and was just tied up with paperwork. I even went as far as going to the post office to pretend to wire money to a fake location, telling everyone it was cash. Old John needed for new gear. Talk about top-tier method acting. But deception is like cheap cologne. Eventually, the rod underneath breaks through. Now, those questions have taken on a suspicious tone. Still not back? Is official business really that slow? Did that old bastard take the coin and run? Or maybe they're no longer casually asking. They're digging. And to make matters worse, the mercenaries, those battle-hardened, scar-faced killers who slay monsters for cash, have started looking at me differently. It's a very specific stare. The look you give an abandoned wallet sitting on a bench, or a helpless kid carrying a bag of gold with zero protection. In a lawless border town like this, having deep pockets without muscle to back it up isn't bad luck. It's practically a death wish. A wave of cold sweat washed over me during dinner tonight. There I was in a tavern, quietly carving into my stew meat, surrounded by the usual noisy mess of wasted adventurers, choking on tobacco smoke, right as a heavy hand slams onto my shoulder. Hey, kid. His breath reeks like a distillery explosion. A beefy, half-drunk mercenary, grinning at me. The exact smirk that says, I'm about to rob you, but I'll pretend we're buddies. His fingers dig straight into my collarbone. Way too aggressive for a casual greeting. Heard your uncle made bank over in Frostwind City. Why haven't you treated the boys yet? Meanwhile, his other hand sneaks toward my coin pouch. Spot me a few silvers, huh? I'll pay you back double when your ranger uncle gets back. Except his hand never even touches the pouch. I react without a hint of panic. No shoving, I just slip away like an eel. My upper body twists left at an awkward angle. My right foot steps back half a pace. And suddenly his grabbing hand snatches thin air. With no support, his wasted balance completely fails him. Bam! Face first into the oak table. Stew flies everywhere, and the entire dining hall freezes in silence for 3 seconds. Those 10 days of relentless archery and sword drills didn't just teach me how to fight. They gave me absolute body control. Now I know precisely where every single muscle is, how much power I'm outputting, and where my weight rests. That dodge wasn't even calculated. It was effortless instinct, as if my body finally speaks my language. I stand up slowly, dinner knife still clutched in my hand, and glare down at the mercenary scrambling to his feet. Without saying a word, I just lock my eyes onto his throat. It's a habit I picked up while field dressing boars. Instinctively, calculating the cleanest angle to slash for maximum efficiency. To me, it was purely mechanical, but to him, it looked like some teenager, coldly picking which artery to open up next. His buzz sobered up real quick. He suddenly remembered I was the apprentice of the man who reportedly one-shot an elite mutant beast with a single arrow. Forget it. Who needs your cash anyway? He stumbles right back to his seat, while the entire tavern bursts out laughing at him. I toss a silver coin onto the table for the spilled food, and calmly head up to my room. I shut the door and lean back against it, my hands trembling, palms drenched in cold sweat. That wasn't random. That was a probe. Next time, it won't be some drunken fool grabbing my shoulder. It'll be a poison blade in a dark alleyway. My time is up. I can't keep sitting around waiting for my uncle anymore. I pull out the pre-packed duffel from beneath my bed. Yeah, I was already prepared, because deep down, I knew this moment was coming. 30 minutes later, I walked straight into a local armory, a completely different shop than my usual haunts. I can't risk the local gossip mill catching wind that I'm dumping all my savings into combat gear, because that basically shouts that my uncle isn't coming back. I slam 12 gold coins onto the counter, practically my entire life savings. Give me a full expedition kit for the Gray Whisper Forest. The shopkeeper locked eyes with me, giving me this deep, knowing look, claiming he could tell I was changing. That fragile, sheltered flower was turning into a hardy weed. And hey, we'd survive anything. I walked out holding a blackhorn composite bow, packing an 80-pound draw weight, double the range of my practice bow, effective up to 200 meters and capable of punching right through chainmail. Weather treated specifically for woodland combat, costing 4 gold. Next up was reinforced, studded leather armor, crafted from adult wind wolf hide, fortified with iron rivets at key impact areas. It's way lighter than chainmail, far sturdier than soft leather, and great for deflecting arrows and beast bites. Though it won't stop a war hammer, price tag, 3 gold, 50 silver. Then I got a steel short sword, pure military grade, with 0 fancy decorations. Built strictly to be hard, fast, and lethal. Complete with a fuller to make targets bleed out fast, setting me back 1 gold and 50 silver. Honest to God, the whole stab and bleed 'em dry feature practically sold itself. Then came the black iron arrows, featuring armor-piercing tips forged with black iron powder, running 50 copper a pop, so I snagged 10 of those bad boys. Throw in 2 quivers packed with standard arrows, a stash of bandages, blood clotting powder, some bug spray, and 5 full days of field rations. Grand total? A whopping 10 gold coins. My wallet took a massive, devastating hit right there. But here's the real deal. Coins in a pouch are just shiny metal, while the gear strapped to your body keeps you alive. Stepping out of that shop fully decked out. Snug leather armor, composite bow slung across my back, short sword resting on my left hip, and loaded quivers on my right. I caught my reflection in a glass window. Just 2 weeks ago, I was just a terrified kid stumbling into town, dragging raw pigskins. Now, okay, still technically a kid, but a kid armed to the teeth with deadly weapons, wearing the cold glare of someone who's already taken down. Monsters way bigger than himself. I didn't even bother heading back to the inn, and I sure as hell wasn't waiting for morning light. Tonight, I'm marching straight into Grey Whisper Forest because right now, I desperately need combat experience. I need raw power because if I return to this town empty-handed, the next chapter of my life will end up being written by some shady mugger with a blade in a dark alleyway. All because 14 gold coins make for one hell of a target. So time to go hunting. The Grey Whisper Forest. At night is the exact kind of creepy place where even the insects sound pissed off just existing there. The literal instant I crossed the tree line, marked by ancient oak trees that past adventurers had hacked white notches into, which were basically the forest version of, cross this line and you will die warning signs. The entire atmosphere shifted. The temperature plummeted. The air turned heavy with the stench of decaying leaves and pine. And every single cricket sounded like it was shrieking out. A frantic warning. But let me be crystal clear, I didn't press deep into the woods. Seriously, let's get one thing straight here. I'm just a level 3 archer, stuck in the scrawny body of a malnourished teen. To the actual apex predators lurking in this forest, I'm not some dangerous threat. I'm a quick snack. Just a bite-sized, crunchy granola bar holding a bough. Eventually, I found a cozy little rocky alcove to hunker down in, strictly avoiding any campfires. Lighting a fire in these woods at night is literally broadcasting an open dinner invitation to every bloodthirsty monster within a 5-kilometer radius. Hey look, free human snack right here. Come get some, and bring your friends along. Instead, I decided to dust some bug repellent all around my makeshift stone fort and rigged up the most primitive security system known to man. Just a fishing line hovering 8 inches off the ground, tied to clusters of dried bones and empty shells, hanging from the branches, so if anything big wanders through, clatter, clatter, and I'm instantly wide awake. That was the whole setup. Now, old John would have crafted these brilliant snare traps and intricate deadfalls, while I went with the caveman version of tin cans on a string. Hey, laugh all you want, but it gets the job done. I'm not trying to catch game here. I just need a 2-second heads up to grab my blade and avoid getting slaughtered. So I passed out hugging that short sword in my chest, like a deadly, razor-sharp teddy bear. Naturally, every single breeze blowing through the canopy kept jolting me awake. 0 stars. I would definitely not recommend this campsite on any review app. Morning rolled around, and I choked down some dry rations with cold water, my stomach instantly revolting, because it had already gotten way too cozy with the buttered eggs and rich beef back at the inn. Suck it up, you spoiled little organ. We're in the wild now. Get used to it. Today's main target, goblins. The local adventurers guild demands 5 left goblin ears just to officially register as a novice adventurer. And that's not just some fancy title, it's a literal shield. Once you get that official guild standing, their non-aggression regulations take effect, and all those shady mercenaries staring at my coin pouch will actually have to think twice before jumping me. Registered adventurers are valuable assets to Blackstone Town, and people don't rob assets, they tolerate them. So I need ears. 5 gross, green little ears. Time to go hunting. After about an hour of carefully tracking through the brush, I spotted some fresh tracks over near a patch of berry bushes. They were tiny, barely half the size of a human palm, with pigeon-toed prints pressed deep into the damp earth. Looks like 3 weight, no, more like 3.5 sets of tracks. I pinched some of the soil between my fingers. Still damp, meaning these were super fresh. One set of tracks sank noticeably deeper than the rest. So either it was hauling something heavy or it was just a chunkier little brute. I pressed forward along the trail, and within minutes, a stench hit my nostrils. That can only be described as raw meat, left rotting in a sewer for 3 days in the dead of summer. Classic goblin BO. These guys don't bathe. They fundamentally oppose the concept of hygiene, making them a personal insult to every functioning nose on the planet. I slithered up behind a moss-covered ridge and peered over the edge. About 120 meters out in a small clearing, 3 green-skinned, runt-sized monsters were tearing into a dead rabbit. Your textbook goblin scouting party, 2 scrawny weaklings. armed with wooden bludgeons and jagged rusty metal scraps for daggers, currently chewing on each other's ears, to decide who gets to munch on the rabbit's head. And one slightly larger brute, standing maybe 4.5 feet tall, decked out in pathetic scrap leather armor, and wielding a heavy bone club studded with sharp wolf fangs. This big guy promptly kicked the other two out of the way, and claimed the entire carcass for himself. That's one mini-boss paired with two basic trash mobs. Distance sits at 120 meters with a light breeze blowing. It's heading southeast, right in my favor. Absolutely perfect. I popped my static camouflage skill and began stealthily creeping forward. Now, my composite bow could definitely kill from this range, but since this was my first actual combat encounter, I was holding out for a guaranteed kill. 110 meters, now 90. Suddenly, the massive goblin snapped its head right up. Those nasty, gross yellow eyes scanned directly over my position. I froze instantly, blending in like a rock. I basically became invisible, suppressing every bit of my bloodlust, literally trying to blend in like a piece of furniture. Thankfully, the goblin's gaze drifted right past me. It sniffed the air, caught nothing, and went back to eating. Time to move. I slowly stood up and pulled my bow back to full draw. My level 3 archery targeting system locked straight onto the back of the mini-boss's bare, unprotected skull, precise as a laser pointer. I released thwack. The black iron arrow flew out, specifically an armor-piercing round, because I wasn't taking any chances. It slammed right through the back of its skull and popped straight out of its eye socket, pinning the monster to the dirt floor in a gruesome spray of red blood and brain matter. It couldn't even let out a scream. It just locked up and collapsed, like a heavy sack of rotten potatoes. The other two goblins just stood there, staring at their dead leader, using whatever 3 collective brain cells they shared, desperately trying to comprehend what just went down. And then they finally spotted me 90 meters away, standing completely exposed out in the open, because my camouflage breaks the exact second I land an attack. Screaming out a battle cry, they charged forward, 2 shrieking green midgets swinging rusted weapons, sprinting straight toward me as pure rage completely took over their fear. I mean, goblin logic dictates that 2 against 1 human means they can easily take me out. Well, goblin logic is dead wrong. Instead of taking another shot, I turned on my heel and took off running, re-engaging my camouflage mid-sprint. Check out my brilliant master plan here, which I like to call the classic kite strategy. Shoot, disappear, flank to a new spot, take another shot, and repeat until every single green, ugly creature is dead. By the time those 2 morons managed to run halfway to where I was originally standing, I was already long gone, poof, vanished into thin air. Their tiny little walnut brains just couldn't comprehend how a full-sized human vanished. On completely flat terrain, they skidded to a stop, scanned the area, and started mindlessly poking at the empty air with their sticks, like a pair of bewildered kids. Meanwhile, I was pressed tight against a massive redwood tree right behind them, trying to catch my breath as my lungs burned on fire. Turns out, sprinting while staying in stealth mode drains a ton of stamina. Still, I peeked around the tree trunk and saw both goblins standing there with their backs completely turned to me, swiping aimlessly at nothing. Total blind spots, how lovely. I pulled out 2 standard arrows this time. No point wasting my high-end ammunition on a couple of clowns. Whip. Arrow number 1 pierced straight through the left goblin's neck, sending blood spraying out like a broken lawn sprinkler. The creature clutched its throat, made a wheezing noise like a busted accordion, and collapsed onto the dirt. That last remaining goblin completely lost it. It couldn't see where I was, and its buddies were dropping dead from invisible arrows. Whatever pathetic slice of bravery was left in its tiny green heart instantaneously shattered to pieces, sending it into a terrified shriek. It let go of its rusty blade and sprinted into the woods as fast as it could. I casually stepped out from behind the tree. No need to rush this time. I lined up my bow's sights on the fleeing green blur, calculated where it was heading, and let the arrow fly. It carved a perfect arc straight through the morning sunlight filtering through the trees, slamming right into the goblin's back. The creature pitched forward like it had been forcefully shoved, skidded 2 meters across the forest floor, and went dead silent. Silence fell over the forest once more, leaving just me, panting heavily in the middle of 3 green corpses. There was no grand system fanfare, no epic victory music, and not even a flashy kill notification banner. The status screen just floated there, displaying a tiny bump in my archery skill points, basically saying, "Yep, you did that. Moving on." Total anticlimax. Sure, it wasn't glamorous, but I'm breathing and they aren't. So I'll happily take the quiet win. Now came the moment of truth. I tapped the mini-boss's body, praying for a tag drop, but got nothing. I tried the second body, still nothing. The third one gave me nothing either. Are you seriously kidding me right now? 0 tags from 3 whole kills? These mobs are way too weak. Thinking back, my very first tag dropped from a dying veteran hunter with decades of experience under his belt. And my second came from mutated elite monster that had survived cosmic horror. Radiation. Goblins are clearly sitting at the very bottom of the loot table. They're so pathetic that my system doesn't even deem them worthy of extracting anything at all. A target needs extraordinary traits to actually trigger a tag extraction, and goblins possess absolutely 0 special qualities. Their only real talents are smelling awful and dying easily. It was a letdown, but today's mission wasn't about harvesting tags anyway. It was all about collecting ears. I pulled out my skinning knife. Carving off a goblin ear feels disturbingly like slicing through raw rubber, drenched in warm blood. My stomach almost revolted on the spot, but I forced myself through it and severed 3 left ears, wrapped them in some cloth, and stashed them in my bag. 9 a.m., 3 ears down. Just 2 more to go. I re-waxed my bowstring, flipped my camouflage back on, and melted right back into the shadows. This hit-and-run strategy really works. Shoot, disappear, relocate, and shoot again against monsters with walnut-sized brains. It's practically a cheat code. And honestly, I'm completely fine with playing dirty. Just 2 more ears, and I'm officially an adventurer. Then those town mercenaries will have to think twice before trying to reach for my coin pouch again. Now, let's hunt down some more green pests to slaughter. Humans adapt to taking lives unervingly fast. And that's the main takeaway from my 3rd day in this forest. 3 days. That's literally all it took for me to go from, oh god, I actually have to slice off ears, to la dita, another dead goblin, another trophy. Wonder what's for lunch today. My backpack currently holds 17 left goblin ears. I literally only needed 5, meaning I gathered 12 bonus ears purely because I was having way too much fun out here. My kiting strategy had basically evolved into an art form. Lock on target, trigger stealth mode. Sneak within 80 meters, open fire, engage directly. Evasive roll, recloak, pull back. Wipe out the stragglers. Honestly, this feels just like playing an FPS with wall hacks and aimbot active. Mowing down low-tier mobs sharing a single brain cell. Amongst themselves, spot a target, turn invisible. Point-blank headshot. Dodge, go ghost again. Change position, clean up the rest. I'm basically in Phantom Marksman out here. And these little green bastards don't even realize what hit him. By the morning of day 4, I was chilling up on a thick tree branch, dangling my legs and munching on some roasted rabbit. Sunlight hitting my face, feeling like the absolute king of this jungle. The outer perimeter of the Gray Whisper Forest? Total walk in the park. Now this is the exact moment where the narrator jumps in and says, and that was the moment he let it go to his head. And honestly, the narrator wouldn't be wrong, because I was getting way too full of myself. My logic was throwing up massive red flags everywhere, and my ego was treating them like party decorations. I was literally just about to head back to the city and sign up as an official adventurer when boom, a sound like God himself slammed the ground resonated. Trees snapping like twigs, the earth violently shaking beneath me. Something insanely massive and utterly pissed off was raging deeper in the woods. Smart Victor says, that ain't your business, get the hell out. Dumb Victor goes, yeah, but what if there's rare loot? Care to guess which Victor won that debate? I cranked my static camouflage straight to max, and gecko crawled toward the noise, looking like the greediest lizard on earth. 500 meters deeper in, the heat suddenly spiked, and the air began reeking of sickly sweet, decaying flesh. I pushed past the dense foliage, and my whole head went numb. 2 gigantic behemoths were throwing down in a clearing. In the left corner, a colossal serpent as wide as a barrel, covered in dark purple and black scales, and oh, isn't this great? It had 2 heads. Both heads were blasting toxic, flesh-melting poison mist, acting like walking, living bioweapons. And in the right corner, a gigantic wolf, rocking ash-blue fur, easily double the size of any ordinary wind wolf, with visible currents of green gale energy, whirling all around its legs. Every slash of its claws unleashed crescent-shaped wind blades that sliced right through solid rock and trees, like a hot blade slicing straight through soft butter. Tier 3 magical beasts. A twin-headed rot viper against a storm ridge wolf. Tier 3 creatures. These things have completely mastered elemental magic Their entire bodies are literally living mana circuits. Even a fully geared squad of veteran adventurers would hesitate big time before daring to take on just one of these monsters. And right now, two of them are going at each other like a full-blown Godzilla movie. The wolf was clearly losing ground, definitely poisoned. Its movements slowing down significantly. Stomach ripped, wide open, and spraying blood everywhere. In one final, desperate Hail Mary play, it unhinged its jaws and fired a concentrated energy blast, glowing brighter than its own entire body, aimed straight at the snake's face. Kaboom! The giant snake got launched into the air, but instead of pressing its advantage, the wolf turned around and bolted straight toward my hiding spot, limping heavily, bleeding pitch-black, venomous blood, and dragging a shattered leg behind it. The snake was pretty banged up too, and apparently, it had zero interest in chasing the wolf toward the forest border, where humans might be hanging out, so it slithered back into the shadows. Now, this is the exact moment my brain decided to commit treason. Against every single self-preservation instinct I had, I took one look at that dying, poisoned, magically drained, three-legged beast hobbling away, and my eyes literally turned into dollar signs, like a straight-up cartoon character. Dude, high-grade tier, 3 monster materials. The pelt, the fangs, and that sweet core. We're talking 50 gold coins at the absolute minimum. That's way more cash than everything I've earned so far combined. Bro, it's practically a walking corpse already, whispered the greedy little gremlin in my head. 0 mana left, poisoned out of its mind. And down a leg, if I pass up on this free loot. The gaming gods will never forgive me. I was already envisioning the whole scenario. Me strutting through the main gates of Blackstone Town, hauling a tier 3 monster carcass on my back, while everyone stood there staring with their jaws on the floor. So yeah, I stalked it. 20 full minutes of maximum stealth mode, burning through my energy just to stay completely unseen. The wolf finally collapsed right beside a dried-up riverbed, sprawled across the rocks, heavily gasping for air, with a puddle of black toxic blood forming beneath it. Honestly, it looked completely done for. A literal dead man walking, or well, a dead wolf walking. I set up my position about 50 meters away, hiding behind a massive old locust tree. That was prime guaranteed kill distance from my composite bow. I pulled back a black iron armor-piercing arrow, aiming straight for its exposed eye socket. This is it, pal. Down you go. Twang. The exact millisecond my bowstring vibrated, that supposedly dead wolf's ear twitched. It didn't even look back, didn't stand up, didn't even shift its posture. It just flicked its tail once. A tiny blade of wind, no bigger than a palm, but compressed so tight it was literally as solid as steel, shot backward at an angle that straight up broke the laws of physics, intercepting my arrow mid-air. My premium black iron arrowhead, the heavy-duty armor-piercing one, that was supposed to be super durable, got sliced clean in half like it was made of wet cardboard. And that wind blade didn't even stop, it kept coming, flying straight for where I was hiding. Pure, unadulterated survival instinct took over, yanking me sideways into the absolute ugliest dodge roll of my entire life. A complete panic mode flop right into the dirt. Crack. That locust tree, with a trunk so damn thick, it'd take 2 whole people hugging it to touch hands. Got cut perfectly in half. The slice was smooth as glass, literally smoking from the pure friction, as the entire tree top crashed down in a massive cloud of dust and leaves. So there I was, eating dirt on my face covered in random debris, staring blankly at that mirror-smooth tree stump, and every single drop of cockiness I had built up over the past 4 days instantly evaporated right out of my pores alongside my cold sweat. Bro, if I was even half a second slower, I would have been split into 2 victors. Left victor and right victor, and neither of us would be breathing. So this is what a real tier 3 monster is capable of. It casually swatted my arrow out of the air without even looking, using nothing but its tail despite being half dead, poisoned, and taking a hit from a wind blade. A blade that literally slices through giant trees like toothpicks. This isn't just some injured beast. It's a walking, talking artillery cannon that just happens to be bleeding out. Spending days bullying low-level goblins really made me think I was top dog. Well, one flick of a tail from an actual high-tier monster just slapped me right back to reality and showed me my place on the food chain, stuck down near the bottom alongside those same goblins. I was acting so superior to literally 5 minutes ago. Talk about instant karma in this world. And then, the wolf got back up. It actually stood up. This thing that was supposed to be dying, completely poisoned, with a shattered leg, bleeding endlessly, and drained of mana, just pulled itself up and locked those piercing, glowing green eyes directly onto my hiding spot. Its maw began powering up all over again, bright green light gathering deep in its throat. Another wind blade was coming. It still has mana left. I'm trapped in an open riverbed going toe-to-toe with a long-range mage, which is basically like bringing a water gun to a rocket launcher fight. I scrambled for cover behind a massive rock, and whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 consecutive wind blades came flying at me. 3 slashes unleashed in rapid succession. The first blade sliced straight through my hood, taking a chunk of my hair with it, leaving a few black strands floating gently through the air, like the world's most depressing confetti. The second one tore right into my thigh, carving straight through my hard leather armor. A deep gash, blood instantly spurting everywhere. And the third slash completely shattered the boulder I was crouching behind, spraying razor-sharp stone fragments across my face like a blast from shotgun. So now I'm curled up behind what's left of this rock, my legs screaming in agony, my hands trembling violently, doing everything in my power not to ruin my brand new armor. From pure terror. Get it together. Get a grip, Victor. All right, use your head, think. It's critically injured. That rapid barrage was just its final death throes. Like a candle flaring up its brightest, right before it burns out completely. It can't possibly keep this up, but I can hear its heavy footsteps, thud, thud, closing in on me. It's coming to finish the job. If I peek my head out, I'm dead instantly. But if I stay put, it'll just flank around the stone, and then I'm dead anyway. I have to pull off a completely reckless, desperate play, one that's almost guaranteed to get me killed. I quickly scan the riverbed, the scattered rocks, that uprooted tree trunk nearby, and finally glanced down at my pouch, where half a bloody rabbit leg was sitting. Time to bet everything on your wild animal instincts. You oversized flea bag. I dumped all my remaining insect repellent powder straight onto the fresh rabbit meat, and chucked it to my left, with every ounce of strength I had left. Splat! The wolf's heavy footsteps instantly halted. The overwhelming stench of raw blood, blended with the harsh chemical powder, completely overloaded its sharp senses. Pure predatory instinct took over. It whipped around toward the sound, its wind magic instinctively charging up aimed right at the newly spotted distraction. A single second of distraction. That's all the opening I needed. Stealth activated. I lunged out from behind the right side of the boulder, completely ignoring the searing white-hot agony shooting up my leg. Pain flared through my thigh, leaving zero time to stop and line up a shot. So I pulled back my bowstring while sprint firing on the move. That's when the wolf realized it had taken the bait. Its massive head snapped right back toward my direction. It unhinged its enormous maw, gathering green energy into a lethal density, gearing up to unleash a point-blank wind blade that would literally slice me clean in two. It was a quick draw showdown, my arrow against its magic. Whoever struck first took the win. Now, if I were using standard ammunition, I'd be dead meat, game over. Fortunately, I wasn't firing any regular projectile. I loaded Old John's special explosive arrow, the high-tier item he bought for serious cash, from another seasoned explorer, the exact secret weapon I'd been saving all trek long, hoarding it like a greedy dragon guarding its final piece of gold. I let the string fly and threw my body backward, dropping flat onto my back. Both strikes were unleashed in the exact same second. The razor-sharp wind blades shrieked right over me, missing my skull by a fraction of an inch, completely atomizing the thick foliage right behind my head. Meanwhile, my arrow hit dead center inside the wolf's wide-open mouth. It wasn't a massive blockbuster fireball, just a dull, heavy thump followed by a thick cloud of dark smoke, blasting straight out from its throat. Gory bits of soft palate and torn tongue sprayed everywhere. Look, an explosive arrow. Definitely wasn't enough to instantly kill a Tier 3 magic beast, but it was more than powerful enough to completely shred the tender tissue inside its throat, which completely ruined its spell casting mid-channel. You can't really focus on wind magic when a literal bomb detonates inside your own mouth. The wolf crashed hard, thrashing around on the dirt in sheer agony, smoke still rising from its bloody jaws. Its brain was totally scrambled from the blast. No holding back, not now. Not ever. I pushed myself up, fresh blood gushing out from my reopened leg wound. Ignoring the agony, I drew my short sword and charged right back in. I lunged onto that monster like a rabid animal, slamming my left hand into its neck, its coarse, wire-like for slicing right into my skin. I flipped my blade into a reverse grip with my right hand, aiming straight for the gut injury that the giant snake had ripped open earlier. Stab, stab, stab. Scalding hot monster blood splattered all over my face. I was blinded, but I didn't care. I just kept driving the blade in. The beast went wild, raking its razor claws down my back. My leather gear absorbed most of the force, but a few claws pierced through, carving burning trails of pain into my flesh. Still, I refused to break my grip. In that single moment, I was wilder than the beast itself. A vicious predator latching onto a dying monster, plunging the steel down like my life was on the line, because it literally was. It twitched once, twice, and then went completely limp. The glowing green light in its eyes slowly snuffed out, just like a TV screen shutting down. I collapsed off the carcass and flopped onto my back against the rough stones of the riverbed, gazing up toward the clear blue sky, through the fresh opening in the canopy, the very spot where those wind blades had sliced through the trees. A dry, rasping laugh escaped my throat, which quickly escalated in a violent coughing fit. My whole body was shaking, shivering uncontrollably like a leaf caught in a hurricane. Honestly, if that Tier 3 beast hadn't already been poisoned, and practically half dead from its fight with the serpent, I'd be a dead man if it hadn't run completely out of mana. After unleashing that insane energy blast, I'd be dead. If I hadn't clutched that single explosive arrow, I'd be dead. People say all according to plan, but what plan? That whole fight was 90% pure panic and 10% absurd luck. And I swore I was never pull a stunt like that again, muttering to myself as I lay soaked in a pool of human and wolf blood. Though deep down, I knew damn well I'd do it all over again, if the loot was juicy enough. After lying there motionless like a wrecked toy for 10 minutes, I finally dragged my broken body up, dumped stinging disinfectant powder straight into my gash, slapped on some bandages, and slammed my bloodstained hand onto the wolf's crushed skull. Please drop a tag. Please give me a tag, I prayed. I almost lost my life for this, so if this beast drops nothing, I'm going to lose my mind. Then a blue tag. Obtained. Blessing of the Azure Storm. Hell yes. I leaped up in excitement, only to instantly regret it with a sharp OW. Right, my leg. Completely forgot about my busted leg. A blue tag. Not white. Not even green, but blue. That's 2 whole tiers higher than my very first tag. Straight off a Tier 3 magic beast. Just like that, this trip went from a suicidal life choice to the absolute best decision I've ever made. Now, time to speed loot. I had to hurry because that battle was anything but quiet, and scavengers, both wild beasts and greedy humans, would be rushing over to check it out. The pelt was pretty ruined, riddled with holes, from its brawl with the snake and my own relentless stabbing spree. Still, I skinned it anyway, because even damaged goods like a Tier 3 wolf hide can net a decent price. And then came the real jackpot. I sliced open its chest cavity using my short sword, plunged my arm elbow deep into the most revolting place I've ever shoved my hand in my entire life, and yanked out a warm, pigeon egg-sized crystal, a glowing, pale blue Tier 3 wind attribute magic core. So worth it. I could literally feel the raw power throbbing inside it. This single little gem alone could finance months of cozy, comfortable living for me. I harvested every single valuable part. Fangs, claws, magic core, pelt, working at maximum efficiency, putting my Level 2 butchering skill into overdrive. With stealth activated, I vanished from the scene. Barely 15 minutes later, I heard voices arriving at the spot. They stumbled upon the wolf's carcass, completely stripped clean of every single valuable resource, leaving them with nothing to do but sigh in disappointment. 2 slow boys. The early bird gets the murder wolf. And this particular early bird was currently limping back toward town, packing blue Tier loot in his pouch, and wearing the biggest, dumbest grin across his bloody face. I dragged my half-dead body 3 kilometers away from that riverbed, hopping on one good leg, mind you, until I finally found a crevice in a rocky hillside, just wide enough to squeeze a human inside. Perfect. Absolute luxury. Basically the Ritz-Carlton of hideouts. I just prayed nothing would try to eat me tonight. My back was against solid rock with only one narrow entrance, and I rigged up my tripwire alarm bells, with the extreme care of someone who just learned the hard way what happens when you get arrogant in a death forest. I triple-checked every single wire, every single angle, and every bell. My whole, yeah, good enough mindset was officially dead. After that, I collapsed onto the cold stone wall, completely drenched in my own sweat, chewing on bread that tasted like a brick. Had a baby with a literal rock, washing it down with water so freezing cold that my teeth actually hurt. I looked down at my thigh. That wind blade slash was deep enough to expose the bone, just 2 inches to the left, and it would have sliced right through my artery. I would have bled out in a minute and a half, on a random riverbank surrounded by goblin ears and wolf guts. Just 3 days ago, I was chilling up in a tree, munching on rabbit like I owned the whole forest. And now I'm cowering in a crack in the rock like a wounded rat. A massive serving of humble pie, eaten, and fully digested. But hey, you know what fixes everything? Unboxing your loot. I opened up my interface and stared at my shiny, new blue-tier skill, Blessing of the Azure Storm. Well, I claimed it. A highlight reel of that wolf's entire life flashed before my eyes. Sprinting through the woods, hunting prey, battling and mastering wind magic. Buried deep in those memory fragments, I gained a first-hand understanding of how those wind blades functioned. The sheer speed, the lethal cutting force, and the exact way air gets transformed into a weapon. Now, what should I enchant? I didn't even hesitate. I slapped that beautiful blue trait straight onto my basic archery. The fusion process took a brief moment, and then boom, Azure Storm Guerrilla Archery Level 4. Draw the string like pulling the wind itself, and release it like gliding through clouds. The effects? The breath of the Azure Storm helps adjust and correct the arrow's flight path midair, while boosting effective range by 30%. Upon firing, wind energy surges all the way from your fingertips down to your ankles, granting an explosive burst of mobility for evasive maneuvers. Leap backward or sidestep with lightning-fast speed, guaranteeing that any enemy counterattack strikes. Where you used to be, not where you are now. I reread that line 3 times, just to double-check that I wasn't hallucinating from blood loss. This skill is straight up the ultimate kiting tactic, weaponized into a superpower. It bakes an automatic dodge directly into your attack. You shoot an arrow, and the wind instantly pushes you out of harm's way, before anyone can even retaliate. It's as if the universe took one look at my cowardly, hit-and-run playstyle and said, here you go. Let me turn that exact cheese strategy into a legit martial art for you. And the stat increases? Oh boy, look at these stats. Strength went up to 9.2. Practically doubled. Agility hit 18.7. Wait, what? It shot up from 4.5 all the way to 18.7. Constitution is at 8.9, and Spirit is up to 8.5. That agility spike is absolutely insane. It totally makes sense for a Ranger class ability, but going from tripping over my own feet, straight up turning into a ninja off a single skill, is the exact kind of ridiculous power spike developers would patch out in any actual balanced game, and I was dying to sprint out into the open to try it out right away. Except my leg was pretty much held together by sheer stubbornness and a bunch of bandages, so I forced myself to stay put. Sleep now, main character moments later. 3 full days of healing. 3 whole days of being more patient than I'd ever been across 2 entire lifespans. Day 1. The rain came down like the sky held a personal grudge against the dirt. So there I was, chilling in my sketchy little rock crevice, practicing my draw, pulling the string back repeatedly without actually firing, because every single thing felt completely different now. Before this, drawing a bow was just muscle fighting against tension, pure physical effort. But now, whenever I gripped the string, I could actually feel this faint draft of air, dancing right around my fingers, surging through the bow as if it were a living thing. The bow wasn't just some piece of gear anymore. It was literally an extension of my arm that could sense the air currents. Where the wind goes, the arrow follows. Profound philosophical thoughts straight from the murder crack. Day 2. The rain finally cleared up, and the gash on my thigh had formed a nice, thick scab. Huge shout out to that 8.9 Constitution stat. Sore as hell, sure, but definitely usable. Meaning it was time for some real field testing. My target was a knot on a birch trunk 100 meters out. Obviously, I wasn't just going to stand still and take aim like a normal person. Instead, I broke into a dash toward the left, whipped around mid-sprint, and drew and let fly in one seamless motion. The old version of me? That arrow would have flown off to a completely different area code. But the upgraded me? I watched the arrow leave the string and straight up bend the laws of physics. It veered ever so slightly, making a tiny, impossible course correction mid-flight. Almost like an invisible hand gently nudged it back on track. To compensate for my sideways momentum. Thunk, bullseye, right in the center of the knot. And the exact millisecond that arrow released, a burst of air pressure detonated right beneath my feet, blasting my body 3 meters to the side, like I was shot out of a localized cannon. I landed without making a sound, knees bent, with the wind element absorbing the entire force of the landing. Just like a cushion made purely out of air. Zero noise, 3 meters instantly repositioned, completely setting me up anew. I stood straight up, brushed the dirt off my gear, And I know for a fact my eyes were doing that full-on anime gleam. Now, this is real guerrilla archery. Taking a shot isn't the end of your turn. It's literally the trigger for your next dodge. Offense and mobility seamlessly blended into a single flow. Fire here, vanish there. By the time the enemy even tries to hit back, I'm already in a completely fresh spot setting up the next shot. Man, if I had this passive back when I fought the wolf, that entire fight would have been an absolute joke. Day 3, my food supplies completely ran out. Not that I cared. At this point, I was easily the most dangerous creature in these woods, weighing under 150 pounds. Around noon, a plump gray rabbit popped its head out from behind a bush, snout twitching as it cautiously scanned for threats. 50 meters off, what looked like empty space was leaning against a tree trunk. That empty space was actually me, but the rabbit picked up on something. It made a mad dash back to its burrow. An arrow flew out, curving wildly instead of taking a straight path, bending right around an inconvenient tree branch. That blocked the shot, riding the soft breeze, to pin the rabbit clean through the neck. At that exact moment, my body backflipped, straight off the ground, landing smoothly on a higher branch before melting into the darkness. Vanish in a single fluid motion. Target eliminated. Position adjusted without wasting a single move. I dropped down to the forest floor, scooped up the twitching rabbit, and smirked. 3 days later, injuries fully healed. New skill mastered, dinner secured. I ran one last check on my gear, composite bow. Sturdy and ready for action. Arrows. Fewer than when I started, but every remaining point polished to a mirror shine. Short sword strapped to my hip. The wolf's magic core tucked securely against my chest inside its cloth pouch. And 17 gross goblin ears stashed in my pack. Tie my head back. I pull my head down low, concealing eyes that were now far sharper and darker than those of the clueless kid who stepped into these woods. A week ago, as the wind whipped through the canopy, a lone shadow glided between the tree trunks, making its way toward Blackstone Town. Without making the slightest sound, that shadow used to belong to a terrified orphan holding a pitchfork. But now it belonged to something completely different. 4 p.m., peak rush hour in Blackstone Town. Adventurers returning from hunts, merchant caravans queuing up, and the stench of cheap ale wafting from every tavern window. Maximum crowd size, absolutely perfect. I timed this grand entrance like a blockbuster opening night. I strolled through the south gate nice and slow, not just because I was exhausted, okay? Well, maybe partly because I was exhausted, but mostly because of the massive thing strapped to my back. A linen-wrapped bundle the size of a giant boulder, perched right on top of my already overflowing pack. Like a nightmare cherry on a trauma Sunday. A stray breeze caught the wrapping, peeling back one of the corners, and a flash of cold, storm blue caught the setting sun. The 2 cart horses closest to me instantly lost their minds, rearing up with rolling eyes and wild, flailing hooves, nearly flipping a full cargo wagon completely over. The driver was screaming bloody murder, savagely snapping the reins, completely clueless as to why. His animals had suddenly decided today was the day to try out for a rodeo. Animals just know they can sense an apex predator. Even when it's dead, the crowd turned to look, and the entire gate area went dead silent, as if someone had just hit the mute button on the universe. It was a wolf's head. A wolf head the size of a massive millstone, even, lifeless and dried out, with crusted, blackened blood at the neck stump, and all spark drained from its eyes. This thing practically screamed, "I used to be at the top of the food chain, and you all better be grateful." It wasn't giving off living energy, but that fur? It wasn't your run-of-the-mill wolf gray. It was a deep, majestic indigo blue, looking like a patch of the night sky, after a violent storm had been woven into a beast. Is that a shadow wind wolf? That kid can actually slay tier 2 beasts. Dude, check out the coat color. You moron, that's a Storm Ridge wolf. A tier 3 boss-class monster. Tier 3. The chatter spread through the forest like wildfire. Tier 2 elites make seasoned adventurers turn tail and run, while Tier 3 monsters are strictly pros only. You'd better bring your elite party and draft up your wolf first in its domain. Yet here's a teenager carrying its head on his back, like a sack of groceries. I kept a stone-cold poker face, completely ignoring every single glare. I just readjusted my shoulder strap and parted the crowd, while the menacing vibe of the dead wolf cleared the way, far better than any bodyguard ever could. Now, I didn't come straight here with this head. When I originally carved up the wolf a week back, I was way too battered to lug something this heavy all the way home, so I buried it. I marked the location and unburied it just this morning, specifically for today's little show. However, before making my way to the Adventurers Guild, I had one quick pit stop to make. I ducked into a side alley that reeked of dirty dishwater and terrible life choices. The alley right behind the Lame Wolf Tavern, the go-to hangout for every street bully, predatory lender, and dirtbag mercenary looking to rob orphan kids in town. And there they were, the exact same crew that had been stalking me for days. That same beef-headed thug, who had grabbed my shoulder during dinner, was currently leaning against a wall half-plastered, boasting about yesterday's antics. Hey, heard old John's kid still hasn't shown up. I bet the old guy dies tonight. We should. His sentence died right in his throat. He sensed it before he even laid eyes on it. A chilling sensation creeping right up his spine. He looked up and locked eyes with me. Pitch black, icy calm, and completely devoid of any emotion. I stood 10 feet away, uttering no words and drawing no blade. I simply pivoted slightly, so the wolf head strapped to my back aimed right at them. That massive, terrifying skull glared directly at their faces, with lifeless blue eyes and jaws locked in a vicious snarl, looking like it could spring back to life and unleash a tempest at any second. Clink! Someone's cheap cup of booze hit the dirt and smashed, sobering every last one of them up in an instant. Simultaneously, they gaped at me, then at the trophy, then back at me, and their bodies instinctively recoiled hard against the brick wall, like a flock of terrified quails, trying to melt right through it. I pulled up my hood and walked off, without saying a single word. In Blackstone Town, a monster's severed head speaks louder than any verbal threat ever could. Message sent, message received. All right, back to the association. The second I shoved open those heavy oak doors, literally every single head in the building snapped toward me. I mean, blood-drenched armor, forest grime, and a massive Tier 3 monster skull. Yeah, that tended to draw a crowd. I walked straight up to the front desk and said, I'm here to register as an adventurer. My voice was super raspy, though. Honestly hadn't spoken to another human in a whole week. The receptionist, just a young girl, looked at me, then looked at the insane trophy on my back, and started stammering like a total glitching robot. Wait. Why, yes, sir. Do you have the goblin ears? Registration needs 5. Yeah, 5 left ears. I unclipped a pouch from my belt, flipped it upside down, and clatter. A giant pile of dry green ears dumped right across the desk. 1, 2, wait, 17. She started counting them with shaking hands. Yep, 17. I only needed 5. But hey, overkill is basically my love language at this point. Registration complete. They handed over my official adventure badge. This rough piece of black iron carved with a crude sword and shield. Honestly ugly as sin. But it gave me 2 glorious things: tax exemption and legal self-defense immunity. As for the extra 12 ears, I turned those in for standard cash bounties. A nice little side bonus. But trust me, I wasn't done yet. I also want to claim this quest, I said, pointing to the job board right behind her. Rank e quest, reconnaissance mission. Gather intel on Storm Ridge wolf movements inside the Grey Whisper Forest. Requirements: confirmed sighting report, active territory range, and physical proof like fur, droppings, or a recording crystal. Base payout: 5 silver for basic info, with high-value evidence negotiable with the client. Now, I'd spotted this quest weeks ago, but skipped it back then because Storm Ridge wolves are deep forest, Tier 3 beasts, constantly flanked by packs of Tier 1 and Tier 2 minions. Way out my league. Well, used to be out my league. Oh, that task. The receptionist blinked. But sir, that quest is strictly for gathering info. And I've got your info right here, I replied, unslung my pack, and slammed the massive wolf head down onto the reinforced counter. Boom! The impact literally sent her inkwell flying 3 inches in the air. Her eyes went as wide as dinner plates, and every single adventurer in the room, who'd been casually eavesdropping, instantly stopped pretending not to look. I plucked a tuft of fur right off the skull. There's your sighting proof. As for the rest, the entire head, the skin, pelt, the claws, I patted my jacket pocket, pulled out a glowing gem with a sharp clink, the magic core. I'm handing all this over as high value physical evidence for the contract, and I want to put in a request for the guild's temporary secure storage and preservation vault until the client shows up to claim it. The receptionist froze up completely, but wait, isn't that service reserved strictly for high-value items? She stammered. I pulled out a copy of the Adventurer's Guild Manual, dog-eared, heavily highlighted, and basically committed to memory over my 3 days of rest, and flipped right to the bookmarked section of Chapter 4, Article 12 regarding designated special quests. Whenever task evidence is valued above 50 gold coins, The guild is contractually required to provide maximum security. Vault storage completely free of charge, protecting it from damage or theft prior to official handover. I glanced at the wolf head, then looked right back at the receptionist. These items easily exceed 50 gold in market value. Is there an issue? Naturally, there wasn't a single issue. Every word I said was technically accurate, legally airtight, and procedurally spot on. In reality, what I'd actually managed to do was trick the Adventurers Guild into becoming my personal, free high-security bank vault, renting a standard safety box in town, large enough to fit a wolf head of this size. Would run me a gold coin every month with 0 security, or transport protection included. But by registering this as quest evidence, the guild is now legally bound to guard it with top-tier security, all without costing me a single cent. Anyone daring to lay a finger on it would be declaring war on the entire guild network. I had basically outsourced my personal security problem to the single most dangerous faction in the city, all for the grand cost of filling out one form. Right behind me, a seasoned adventurer smoking a pipe suddenly cracked up. Man, this kid is a whole genius. He saved his cash and hired the biggest muscle in the region. Just then, the branch manager stepped downstairs. A sharp-eyed middle-aged guy. He glanced at me, then shifted his gaze to the wolf head, instantly catching on to my entire scheme. I was leveraging the guild's clout, using their reputation as my ultimate shield. Picture a tiny ant, lugging a massive gold bar right through a den of thieves. So the ant manipulated the biggest bouncer around into holding onto that gold for him. The manager chuckled. Log it under maximum security protection, and dispatch an emergency notice to the client in Frostwind City. Inform them that the Storm Ridge Wolf Trail has officially been recovered. The client showed up ridiculously fast. One day, I'm just filling out basic paperwork, and the next, I've got a butler impeccably dressed in a tailcoat, sitting directly across from me. In the second floor VIP lounge. This floor is strictly reserved for high-ranking pros, but they unlocked access for me temporarily. Turns out, hauling in a Tier 3 Monster Head gets you treated to the fancy high tea setup. This guy practically reeked of high aristocracy, with slick back hair so sharp it could probably deflect incoming arrows, a classic gold-rimmed monocle, and a tailored black suit that didn't have a single crease on it. Every single gesture he made practically screamed, "My pocket change is worth more than this entire town." He inspected the wolf head and the magic core, with the meticulous care of a master jeweler evaluating raw diamonds. The preservation quality is remarkable, particularly this core right here. Its wind element matrix is surprisingly stable. I sat back on the plush velvet sofa, keeping my posture perfectly straight. Acting like this is just another regular Tuesday for me. Vibe, but honestly, I just got lucky with 2 short words. Because badasses don't waste time monologuing. The butler gave me a look that basically said, "I know you're bluffing, but I've got to respect the act." He reached into his coat for a silk pouch and casually slid it across the table. That includes the price for the claws and hide. 145 gold coins in total. Yep, a whole 145 gold pieces. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard. I thought it was going to burst right out of my chest. Old John grinded his whole life just to leave me 35 silver. And now this? I couldn't even process the math without my brain short-circuiting, so I kept my expression cold. Poker-faced as solid stone. I grabbed the pouch, tested its weight, and offered a simple nod. Fair deal. Appreciate it. On the inside, I was practically throwing a party, with full-on fireworks setting off in my head. But on the outside, I stayed colder than that wolf's wind magic. The butler stood up, neatly adjusted his flawless cuffs, and hit me with a real bombshell. "Victor, the Clement family always values talented individuals like you. If you ever find yourself in Frostwind City, be sure to look me up." Boom. High tier, noble connection unlocked. Looking through the glass, I watched him step into an extravagant carriage, bearing a purple crest, right outside the association building. Every single thug who had been eyeing me up to rob me stared as that high-end ride pulled away, and they all had the exact same realization. Messing with a kid backed by aristocracy might just be a fatal career mistake. Just like that, the danger level around me dropped straight to 0. And now, it's time to go on a spree. 145 gold coins sounds like a fortune, right? Well, guess when suddenly not. That much money when you're trying to gear up just to stay alive. In a death trap forest. First stop on the list. The local alchemy shop, the Bottle of Truth. I walked inside, window shopped way longer than I should have, and then dropped a whopping 90 gold coins for an item that barely fit in my hand. It was this tiny, ugly gray leather pouch. A minor spatial satchel, a high-grade, alchemical creation. It holds a full cubic meter of pocket dimension inside. essentially giving you a walk-in closet that fits in your pocket. Even better, time slows down in there, meaning food doesn't go bad and potions don't dry up. 90 gold for a single pouch, though. Watching my hard-earned coin bag shrink like a deflating balloon gave me actual, physical chest pain. But then I stuffed it back up bow. 5 full days of food. And a tons of survival gear straight into this little bag. And it all just vanished right inside it. Okay, yeah. This is officially the greatest purchase I've ever made. No more hauling a whole mountain of loot on my back, like some overworked pack mule. No more drawing unwanted eyes with giant monster heads. And no more losing my mobility, just because I'm weighed down by heavy trophies. This tiny pouch literally solved every single issue I've faced since day one. Next up on my shopping list, the blacksmith. I shelled out 25 gold to hire a traveling rune engraver, engraving lightness runes directly onto my composite bow, which means way less draw effort and much faster arrow velocity. My main weapon basically just got a turbocharged engine upgrade. Finally, time for new armor. As for my trusty, old studded leather vest, rest in peace, old friend. You took a brutal claw swipe from a wolf, so my back wouldn't have to, but you're completely shredded now. Meet the replacement, a custom-tailored night walker set. It's soft armor crafted from the underbelly hide of a fully grown black lizard, thoroughly soaked in special chemical treatments. The matte dark gray finish literally looks like condensed shadow. Its defensive stats equal high-grade hard leather. But, and here's the absolute best selling point, the joints are specially treated to produce zero noise. Whenever I move, completely silent gear, perfect for a stealth sniper build. Sitting at 20 gold, by the time I stepped out of that final shop, my 145 gold coins had dwindled down to less than 10. Yep, dirt poor once again. Still, as I patted the spatial pouch resting on my belt, and felt the weightless, high-tier armor on my body, I couldn't help but grin. The biggest smile I've had since gets transmigrated into this world. Current me could easily wipe the floor with 10 versions of last week's me. Cue the 3-month montage. Roll the epic training music. I basically turned into an absolute questing machine. The quest board over at the Adventurers Guild was starting to look like my personal daily to-do list. I-rank clearance. Wipe out a frenzy of vampire bats, cleared in just half a day. I-rank mission. Eliminate wandering kobold bandits, done in a single day. Idan quest. Hunt down a corrosive slime infestation overtaking an active mine, finished in 2 days flat. Always operating solo, never joining a party. A true lone wolf. Kinda ironic considering I literally had to slay a wolf to get this far. A few local adventurers claimed they caught glimpses of me battling deep in the forest, describing what looked like a gray phantom, flickering effortlessly between canopy branches and giant boulders, never remaining in one spot for long, never taking a single hit head-on. Every single shot was immediately followed by an instantaneous flash step dodge. Evasion at its finest. Monsters were dropping dead without ever realizing what hit them. Shoot, flash step, vanish, reappear, and fire again. My kiting strategy had transformed from a desperate survival mechanism into a refined art form. And after hundreds of kills, I finally cracked the secret drop rate system. Turns out the strongest. Tier 1 monsters have a chance to drop white tags, while Tier 2 elites drop green tags practically every single time. So naturally, I upgraded everything. Not just my combat abilities, but skinning and gear maintenance as well. All of them received major power-ups. Hell, I even applied a tag fusion to my butchering skill. Because why not? Every tiny advantage matters. I also picked up an extremely vital piece of lore about this world. In major hubs like Frostwind City, there are specialized enchanters who enhance equipment. And enchanted gear has distinct visual effects. Glowing halos, glowing runes, you name it. If I started strutting around this rural backwater town, carrying glowing weapons, every broker within a 100-mile radius would start prying around with questions I'd rather not answer. So stick to skill upgrades only. Keep the real power hidden. Smart move. Fast forward 3 months into late autumn, and I was standing right in front of a full-length mirror, chilling in my upgraded suite over at the Copper Cup Inn. I could barely even recognize the reflection in the mirror. That skinny, scrawny orphan kid with noodle arms was completely gone. 3 solid months of nonstop daily combat, fueled by an endless supply of magical beast protein, had transformed my physique into something dangerously lean and athletic. Not overbulked or slow, but packed with dense, functional muscle like a drawn war bow ready to snap. That cheap, low-tier Iron Adventure badge was history as well, replaced instead by a shiny bronze-tier rank badge with a clean metallic glow. a trophy carved out of a massive mountain of slain monsters. Guerrilla archery hit level 6. Every single one of my passive skills fully enchanted and maxed out, and my stats absolutely skyrocketing, compared to that pathetic kid with a tiny 5.3 strength stat, who had to fight off a wild boar using a pitchfork just 4 short months ago. If I ran into that half-dead Storm Ridge wolf again right now, that fight wouldn't even be a challenge. However, I'd also hit a serious progression wall, because Bronze and Black Iron rank adventurers are strictly restricted to taking E and F rank quests, basically glorifying basic pest control, meaning these tasks were way too easy for me now. My skill growth and proficiency gains were grinding to a halt, and while the gold was decent, it wasn't game-changing wealth. It was finally time to make my next big move, starting in just 1 week. The official silver rank qualification exam, hosted directly by the Adventurers Guild itself. You need to be at least bronze rank just to apply. For months back, when I first signed up, I was just a helpless orphan holding a farm tool, brawling with a monster pig inside a falling-apart shack. Now, I'm officially aiming for silver rank. So let's see what kind of madness this fantasy world throws at me next. The Silver Qualification Trial. This is the real deal, the big leagues. The ultimate exam, meant to prove you're no longer just a newbie scrub. The designated testing zone was located deep within the middle layer of the dangerous Gray Whisper Forest, which smelled like absolute garbage. A foul mix of decaying vegetation, fresh monster dung, and real soon blood. Because there's always blood. The main proctor was a grizzled, one-eyed veteran soldier, who was staring down the entire crowd, like he was already planning all of our funeral services. Rule number 1. Hunt down specified monsters off the official target list, and rack up at least 500 total points within 3 days. Rule number 2. PvP combat is strictly forbidden, in theory. He delivered that last part with a shady little smirk, which basically meant the proctors wouldn't be looking too closely anyway. And rule number 3, the most important one. If you end up dead out there, that's entirely on you. A few scattered chuckles echoed through the gathered crowd, mostly coming from wealthy noble brats bringing along personal bodyguards, or ruthless mercenary squads who had clearly pulled this kind of scam before. To those guys, this whole trial wasn't a real test of skill. It was an all-you-can-eat free buffet. Farm a few low-level mobs for easy points. Jump some weak solo applicants to steal their hard-earned loot. And waltz back home filthy rich. Around 50 bronze rank adventurers had gathered in total. I intentionally kept my distance at the very back edge of the crowd. My Dark Knight Walker armor completely melting into the dim morning shadow, making me look practically invisible. I didn't bother rechecking my weapons or scanning the crowd for potential teammates. I just took a deep, steady breath. And as I did, something incredible happened. Every single piece of my equipped gear, my customized bow, my arrow quiver, my sidearm short sword, even my spatial storage pouch, began pulsing and humming in total unison with my own pulse. Equipment resonance level 3. Months of constantly utilizing, maintaining, and fighting with the exact same gear had literally turned my entire loadout into a seamless extension of my own body, burning way less stamina while pumping out far higher damage. At this point, my bow isn't just a weapon anymore. It feels like an extension of my own body. Oh, and did I mention the new additions to my arsenal? Let me catch you guys up on all the skill upgrades I unlocked after 3 straight months of nonstop grinding. First up, Forest Whisper Attunement. Level 3. It evolved from my basic trap-making skill, after I enchanted it using a tag harvested from a plant monster, a creature that possessed a massive, sprawling underground root network. Now all I have to do is touch a tree, and I can tap directly into the forest's subterranean network. Every single root, vine, and patch of moss acts like a personal motion sensor. I can literally feel vibrations traveling through the dirt. So if something so much as brushes past a bush 300 meters away, I instantly pinpoint it. It's basically like having a live CCTV system built entirely out of nature. Next up is Weakness Insight, Level 4, which evolved from my skinning and butchering abilities. When I'm in combat, I can see the structural vulnerabilities of any target, highlighted crystal clear like a video game HUD overlay. Gaps in their bones, muscle joints, old injuries, even major blood vessels. They all light up with glowing red lines and white target dots. It was originally designed to help me carve up monster corpses more efficiently, but turns out knowing where to strike is just as lethal when the targets are still breathing. To me, everything in this forest is just waiting to be flawlessly skinned. Then we have Blind Fight Swordplay, Level 3, which evolved from basic swordsmanship. After I imbued it with a tag from a giant spider, I can pick up subtle airflow changes right through my skin. If an enemy swings a blade at me from behind, I feel the air pressure shift long before the edge actually reaches me. I don't need my eyes. I don't need my ears. My skin reads incoming attacks for me. Yeah, safe to say those 3 months of tag hunting really paid off. Now let the real game begin. A crowd of 50 participants charged headlong into the woods, looking like a stampede of hyped-up wild cattle. As for me, I didn't even budge. I waited patiently until every last one of them vanished from sight, then casually strolled over to a massive ancient oak, placing my palm firmly against its rough bark. Forest Whisper Attunement, activate. Instantly, color drained from the world, transforming everything into a pulsing gray-green mesh of raw environmental data. My mind plunged deep into the root system, connecting directly to the forest's underground information grid. Sensory data came flooding in. 3 kilometers ahead to the left, a flock of iron bee crows was startled into the sky. The main group of candidates was pushing through 500 meters to my right, their heavy boots trampling vegetation. Meanwhile, something massive was positioned straight behind me. 200 meters back, 5 distinct sets of footsteps were creeping along, trying to stay silent as they carefully picked their way through the brambles, closing in on my exact location. I opened my eyes a cold, emotionless smirk playing on my lips. 5 of them, moving in a balanced combat formation. Man, it looks like this lone sheep already picked up a pack of wolves on his trail, completely ignoring my stalkers. I turned around and walked straight toward those heavy, massive vibrations. Hey, if I'm going to take a test, I might as well start by tackling the hardest question first. Standing before me was a black iron-armored rhino, a formidable Tier 2 magical beast. This beast is literally the worst nightmare of any melee fighter out there. Its hide is coated in rock-hard keratin, naturally fused with raw black iron ore. You could swing a massive 2-handed broadsword with all your might. And trust me, all you'd get out of it is a few sparks and a sore arm. Right now, this absolute unit was throwing a full-blown temper tantrum, aggressively stomping the dirt. I could see a bunch of shattered arrows sticking right out of its rear end. Looks like some poor group of adventurers tried taking it on earlier and failed miserably, probably running away crying like 3 months back. Honestly, if I didn't have my skills, I would have turned around and sprinted away so fast I'd leave skid marks. Instead, I perch high up on a tree branch 100 meters out and immediately triggered my weakness inside ability. In a split second, this seemingly invincible iron-plated rhino transformed into a full-on medical diagram. Glowing red, dotted lines mapped out across its whole body, highlighting bone structures, muscle connection points, and major blood vessel pathways. And then I saw it, right at the back of its neck, hidden beneath its thickest layer of armor plating, a tiny white dot no bigger than a fingernail. It was an unhealed scar from an old battle wound. Just 3 inches behind that spot lay its central nervous system. Jackpot! I drew back my bow with equipment resonance fully active. The bowstring wasn't resisting my pull at all. It was actively assisting me. Drawing the string back felt as weightless as pulling a strand of wind. A swirl of blue-green energy spiraled wildly around the arrowhead. Thanks to level 6 guerrilla archery, I can freely shift my wind energy between speed and raw attack power. And against a super tanky target like this, I dumped every single ounce of power straight into the arrow for max penetration and extreme range. Sensing impending death, the rhino's head snapped right up, twang. No big explosion, no flashy drama. Just the crisp sound of a hot knife slicing effortlessly through butter. Coated in wind, my black iron arrow completely bypassed all air resistance, threaded the needle straight through that fingernail-sized gap, and severed the central nerve instantly. Boom! One moment, it was a raging, invincible beast, and the next, 2 full tons of dead meat, slammed into the earth like a collapsing skyscraper. Dust cloud everywhere, ground-shaking impact, and just like that, done. A one-shot kill. A raid boss that wipes out entire high-level parties was taken down by a single arrow from a teenager chilling in a tree. I flipped down from the branch, my skinning knife already spinning in my hand. In under 2 minutes flat, I carved out the rhino horn and extracted its magic core, shoving them straight into my spatial pouch. But as soon as I wiped my hands and stood up, clap, clap, clap. Slow, dramatic applause echoed from inside the clearing dust cloud. Simply impressive, just beautiful. 4 figures stepped out of the shadows, fanning out to completely surround me. Their leader was a bald guy, with a nasty facial scar, wielding a massive warhammer. Flanking him were a rogue and a pair of shield-bearing tanks. and hidden somewhere up in the tree line behind them was a fifth guy, a sniper archer already aiming straight at my head. A textbook hyena squad. These scum don't hunt monsters. They hunt the players who do. They let someone else do all the dirty work, then ambush them and jump them for the loot at knife point. Hell of a shot, kid. Scarface sneered, his greedy eyes scanning my bow, and then fixated on my spatial pouch with blatant, unabashed greed. Spatial gear, too? What are you? Some rich, noble kid out here playing adventurer. His rogue, along with one of the warriors, drifted off to the side, effectively blocking off my escape routes. You know how this works. Scarface smirked, planting his war hammer firmly into the dirt. Hand over the gear, the rhino materials, and every last thing inside that magic pouch. Since your marksmanship actually impressed me, we'll only break one of your legs before letting you crawl back home. I casually brushed the dust right off my hands. You trailed me all morning just to deliver that line. Oh, cocky are we? Scarface's grin instantly turned menacing. Get him. Don't kill him, though. We need him breathing so we can see if his family will pay a ransom. Two separate attacks went down at the exact same second. The hidden sniper released an arrow, screaming directly toward me, straight out of the trees. Meanwhile, the rogue went completely invisible with some stealth dash, reappearing right at my rear right flank, driving a venom-coated dagger straight for my kidney. A textbook assassination combo. These guys had clearly pulled this off before. Plenty of times, in fact. Too bad for them. Their past experiences never involved taking on someone like me. Blind fighting and swordplay activated. I didn't even bother turning around. I didn't have to. The tiny hairs on the back of my neck felt the air slice open. As that envenomed blade surged toward my kidney, clang, my short sword whipped out behind my back, in a reverse grip, catching the dagger's fuller groove. At an utterly impossible angle. The rogue's eyes dilated in sheer, unadulterated, how did he do that? Terror. I could literally feel his hand trembling through our locked weapons. Your grip is shaking way too much. A gust of gale-force wind erupted beneath my feet. Guerrilla archery's displacement burst engaged. I launched myself 5 meters sideways like a human missile, leaving the rogue slashing empty air, while the incoming sniper arrow plowed harmlessly into the dirt, where I had been standing a split second ago. Right in midair, while literally flying through the sky, I twirled around, drew my bowstring, and knocked an arrow, aiming not at the rogue right in front of me, but straight at the archer lurking up in the trees. Focus the real threat. Always eliminate the range support first. First target, twang. The arrow crossed the distance with such absurd speed that the hidden archer caught only a faint blue blur, right before it punched violently through his throat, pinning him directly to the tree trunk. Behind him, as his half-drawn arrow clattered uselessly to the forest floor. He attempted to scream out a warning to his team, but the only sound escaping his mouth was a bloody, choking gurgle before his head limply slumped to the side. Permanently silenced. Target number 3 is down. He's a tough bastard. Everyone rush him at once. Get those shields up front. Surround him. Box him in. Scarface barked orders, his face turning completely purple with rage over his fallen sniper. The two shield-bearing warriors locked their heavy defenses together, like a moving wall of solid steel, and began advancing directly toward me. Cute tactic. I notched 3 arrows simultaneously, and unleashed all 3 straight into their shield line. The wind-infused projectiles didn't pierce through the metal. That wasn't even the plan. They hit like literal battering rams, with a staggering kinetic shockwave shoving both shield-bearers violently backward, pinning down the warrior's arms temporarily. For a split second. Meanwhile, I hadn't forgotten about that sneaky rogue, so I launched an extra arrow right at him. From a trajectory, so insane it'd make a math teacher break down crying. It clipped his forearm and drew blood, though it didn't kill him. Annoying, but I could live with it. By the time they shook it off and looked up, I had completely vanished. Nothing left except drifting leaves where a guy just stood. He's up in the trees. Look above us. The rogue yelled, spotting me, swinging from a vine like Tarzan's upgraded, cooler version, catapulting myself straight into the treetop canopy by harnessing the kickback from my multi-shot spread. After him, he's just a squishy archer. Once we push deeper into these woods, his sniper range is useless. Ah, Scarface. You sweet, clueless idiot. You seriously think these trees give you the upper hand? Brother, this forest is my natural habitat. I baited them into a full-on pursuit through the thick woods. And this is precisely where the fun began for me, and where absolute misery started for the rogue named Gray Rat. Now, Gray Rat was the nimble speedster of their squad, literally the only guy fast enough to match my pace. However, I kept toggling my static camo skill on and off, mid-sprint, completely melting his brain. From his POV, I wasn't running in a smooth line. I was straight up glitching. One frame, I'm behind a birch tree. Blink. The next frame, I teleport 10 feet to the left inside a bush. Blink gone, blink reappearing again. Except somewhere entirely different. It was like trying to track a laggy player in an online game. Suffering from extreme high ping. His eyes were watering. His head was throbbing. And cold sweat started dripping heavily down his forehead. What is this guy using? An invisibility cloak? An illusion scroll? Neither, my guy. Just 100% pure, organic, forest-grade psychological torture. Gray Rat glanced back over his shoulder. His allies were stranded a good 100 meters behind. Those heavily armored shield tanks, plowing through the undergrowth. Sounded like a set of pots and pans rolling downstairs. He was all alone, isolated deep in the woods. Hunting something his eyes couldn't even track properly. His self-preservation instincts finally flared up. He abruptly halted, slammed his back against a rotting tree, and white-knuckled his venomous dagger. Smart move, except way too late. I killed my momentum as well. Spun around, and right across a 50-meter gap of woodland, staring through the filtered sunlight. I locked eyes with him and hit him with a smirk. Then, I literally deleted myself from reality. Maximum opacity camouflage, top to bottom, fading out like a pencil sketch getting erased. Gray Rat stared blankly at the exact spot where I'd stood, his pupils shrinking down to tiny pinpricks. His brain was screaming emergency alarms. Yet his vision registered absolutely nothing. Just empty air and rustling leaves. Show yourself. I know you're hiding right there, he yelled into the trees, his voice cracking with panic. Zero response. Not that I needed to say anything. I'd already flanks maneuvered around him, silent as rolling fog, using wind mana to muffle every single step, sneaking up directly behind him, right in his blind spot, even as he kept shouting threats. At a completely empty patch of trees, about 12 meters ahead of him, his back was turned to me, dagger clutched tight across his chest. Every single muscle tense as he stared in the completely wrong direction. I pulled back the bowstring and whispered. He spun around fast, I'll give him credit for that. And the final sight his eyes ever took in was me, standing there completely unfazed, like I'd been patiently waiting all day, with an arrow hovering just 2 meters from his face. Thud right through the skull, pinning him to the exact same dead tree he was just leaning on. His poison blade, the kind that kills you the second it touches skin, tumbled uselessly into the dirt. I lower my bow without even sparing him a glance. 3 left. Gray Rat, Scarface, and his shield guys finally showed up, out of breath, only to find their robed buddy pinned to a tree, with an arrow lodged straight through his eye socket, and the most horror-stricken look I have ever managed to leave on a dead guy's face. The forest went completely silent. Nothing but the wind rustling through the leaves, which, to them right now, sounded like death itself. Whispering their names. They're dead. They're all dead. One of the shield guys was trembling so violently that his teeth were literally chattering, his knuckles turning white as he clutched his shield. Captain, what kind of monster are we fighting? Is that seriously just a bronze rank? Rookie. Scarface immediately shifted into full military commander mode. Fall back. Dortoise formation. Move to open ground. Smart move. Honestly, out here in the woods against me, they're just lab mice stuck in a maze. On clear terrain, at least they'd be able to see me coming. The 2 shield users locked their shields together in a textbook turtle setup, covering both their front and sides, while Scarface tucked himself into the back corner, with his remaining gear, protecting their rear against any ordinary archer. This wall was practically unbreakable. You need a heavy siege ballista to break through that setup. I watched the whole thing from 20 meters up in a treetop, perched like a relaxed panther. With weakness sight activated, their impenetrable shield fortress instantly turned into a breakdown of critical flaws. Glowing red lines highlighted the stress points across their shields, while white dots pinpointed every tiny gap in their armor. Dortoise formation. I almost snorted. Anything that moves is going to have openings. The shield guy on the left had an old injury in his right leg, deep red marks on the muscle, showing it had never healed properly. Every single time he took a step, he was reflexively lifting the bottom edge of his shield, just to relieve the pressure. A half-second window with his ankle exposed like clockwork. Meanwhile, the shield guy on the right was breathing way too heavily from sheer panic, his shoulders heaving every 3 seconds. Each time he gasped, the seam between their 2 shields widened, a gap barely a finger wide. To an average person, these flaws were completely invisible. To me, these flaws were wide-open doors. I timed the left guy's steps. 3, 2, 1. Twang! A bolt of black lightning unleashed. The arrow slipped right through that split-second ankle gap, like it already had a VIP pass. Gah! A direct hit. The warrior hit the dirt, instantly shattering their shield wall on one flank, just like a skyscraper losing its main support beam. He's above us. Scarface actually had insane reflexes, though. He instantly whipped his warhammer around and launched it straight at my perch, before that guy's scream could even finish. Echoing, a deafening crack shattered the heavy branch to pieces. Too slow, buddy. I was already leaping to the next tree, firing off another shot midair in one seamless motion. That's Guerrilla Archery 101 for you. Every single arrow is at instant relocation. Captain, grab me. Please pull me up. The guy I shot in the ankle was desperately reaching out for Scarface's leg, begging for salvation. And right here, I witnessed the absolute ugliest, most pathetic side of human nature. Scarface, Mr. Big Bad. The guy preaching we're brothers, we're a team, loyalty till death, looked down at his bleeding comrade, glanced up at the dark canopy where death was waiting, and made his choice in a fraction of a second. He viciously kicked his dying teammate's hand off him and bolted straight for the riverbank. Didn't even look back. Wow. A cold, ruthless chuckle escaped my lips from the shadows. My weakness, insight, skill highlights, physical vulnerabilities, sure. But honestly, I don't need a cheat code to see through the pathetic flaw in a man's soul. The two remaining shield guys were completely finished. No leader, zero morale, and no will left to fight. They could wait. My main target right now was the runner. Taking a steady breath, I pushed guerrilla archery and equipment, resonance to their absolute limits. Violent gusts of wind energy flared around my fingers, and in that moment, the bow and I resonated as one. Twang! That release echoed sharper and far more lethal than any shot I'd taken so far, sounding like the air itself was screaming in agony. Scarface felt the sudden ice-cold chill on his back mid-sprint, his battle instincts screaming at him to dodge, to block, to do anything. He tried spinning around and raising his arm. Shield, but he was way too slow. Or rather, my arrow was just way too fast. A swirling, teal cyclone engulfed the entire arrow shaft as it cleared 60 meters. In what felt like a single blink of an eye, it shredded through the chainmail on his back, located the tiny two-finger gap between his helmet and collar, and threaded the needle like silk through a needle's eye. Scarface stumbled forward 2 steps purely on momentum. Before his body realized, he was already dead. He slammed face first into the dirt, dark blood staining the gray soil red. I stayed perched up in the tree, knocking another arrow, and held my position for 10 seconds. I watched his vitality meter completely drop to 0 via. Weakness in sight. Target confirmed dead. Just 2 left. I turned my gaze back toward the shield guys. One was writhing on the ground, wailing and clutching his ruined ankle, while the other was technically still on his feet, except his legs were trembling so violently. His shield was literally rattling against the dirt. His eyes were totally hollow. His soul had basically already left his body, dropping down from the branch. My stealth veil slowly faded away the second my feet touched the ground, revealing my face, a 16-year-old kid who, admittedly, looked kind of cute, but carried an absolutely chilling, terrifying composure. Please, don't kill me. The surviving shield warrior spotted me approaching him, screamed in panic, and tossed aside his tower shield, the very thing he was supposed to protect with his life, falling straight to his knees and slamming his forehead into the dirt. Take whatever you want. All my gear, just please spare me. I've got a family back home. I put an arrow right through his throat mid-sentence. Sorry about that, I said in a deadpan voice. Though honestly, I wasn't sorry at all. Pull the weeds. But leave the roots, and they'll just grow back in the spring. Cold-hearted? Maybe, but these scumbags make a living hunting down novices. They've pulled this exact trick on countless solo adventurers who didn't have the power to fight back. If I spared him, he'd just recover, gather a new crew, and do it all over again. Most likely to someone far weaker than me. Someone who wouldn't make it out alive. The final shield warrior glanced up at me with dead eyes. There was no terror left in him, just pure, exhausted acceptance. Just make it quick, all right? One single, clean arrow did the job. 5 minutes later, the woods were peaceful once again, and I was kicked back on a tree root counting up my loot. A total of 30 gold coins scored across 5 bodies. As a nice little bonus, I even got a minor healing potion. Their equipment was actually pretty solid, so I stashed it all into my dimensional pouch. Those heavy tower shields were way too bulky, though. I had no choice but to leave them behind. Otherwise, I wouldn't have any space left for actual trial rewards. Now, taking human lives was nothing new to me. Ever since my little parade through town displaying those wolf heads, combined with my ties to a noble family, most of the opportunistic scavengers backed off. Keyword being most, not all. Whenever I ventured back into the woods wearing high-end gear, people would tail me. The first time, the second time, even a third time. Eventually, they learned to stop following me. Mostly because the thugs with notorious reputations started mysteriously vanishing, never to be seen again. Funny how that works out, right? Reputation, after all, is just violence that happened to be inflicted on someone else. I pushed myself up, brushed the dirt off my pants, and checked the sun. Morning rays were beaming straight through the canopy, meaning it was still early, with a long day lying ahead. Activating Forest Whisper. Attunement, my perception expanded, rippling outward through the moss and root systems, just like waves in a pond, illuminating a full map of the forest right in my head. Over in that direction, southeast, about 2 kilometers out, something was generating massive seismic shocks, the kind of heavy impacts that made plant roots pull back in sheer terror. A suffocating, scorching aura emanated from it, so intense that even the surrounding trees seemed to lean away. A high-tier magical beast, and a massive one at that. I rubbed my chin as a smirk slowly spread across my face. Toggling my static camouflage back on, my silhouette blurred out, flickered momentarily, and completely melded into the wood's shadows. All right, this trial just got a whole lot more exciting. Time to go check out whatever is making the ground shake. Cut to sunset on day 3 of the trial. There I was, perched up on a giant redwood branch, with my legs swinging in the air, messing around with glowing green orbs like a playful cat playing with yarn. These right here were my rewards after 3 full days of grinding. Green tags dropped from second-tier monsters. I've been pumping them straight into my active skills. Like little upgrade snacks, I fed a Swift Hunter tag directly into Blind Fight. Ensor Mastery, scoring myself 23 proficiency points. And that was it. No epic transformation whatsoever. No shiny new skill either, just raw stat points. As it turns out, once you enhance an ability using a specific tier tag, feeding it even more tags from that exact same tier does nothing except fill up its proficiency meter. There is no evolution, no flashy light show, just pure grinding. I'll probably need higher tier tags if I want a real upgrade. I cast a glance over toward the deep woods, where that dark gray mist never seems to fade. That's where the blue tags are hiding, deep in a place where eldritch whispers melt your brain into mush, and sunlight completely fails to hit the forest floor. Yeah, let's save that little trip for a day. Well, I'm actually feeling suicidal. The association had actually unleashed some tougher, second-tier monsters into the exam area, just to keep things interesting, but every single target only dropped green. My previous fight with the Storm Ridge Wolf was pure dumb luck, a once-in-a-lifetime lottery win that I barely managed to cash in, after almost dying in the process. By now, my spatial pouch was practically bursting with 8 second-tier magic coins, alongside an entire museum's worth of harvested monster parts. Safe to say this trial was totally crushed. I was just getting ready to head back to the extraction zone when boom, a massive explosion went off less than 500 meters away. A wave of scorching air hit me, sending flocks of birds scattering out of the trees like confetti. Now, the smart move here would have been to ignore it and walk away. But I popped my camouflage skill and went over to investigate, because apparently, I still haven't learned how to mind my own business. What I stumbled upon was quite the scene inside a clearing. A ridiculously furious, 3-meter-tall rage bear. It was a second-tier heavy tank class monster with paws, capable of crushing giant boulders into dust, currently having the absolute worst day of its life. And why? Because surrounding. The beast was the most ridiculously expensive combat squad I'd ever laid eyes on. You had 4 bodyguard knights decked out in high-end plate armor, pinning the bear down using massive tower shields. And standing right behind them was the main attraction, a golden-haired kid wearing an elegant silk robe, waving around a ruby-encrusted staff, and dramatically chanting a spell, like he was auditioning for a Shakespeare play at the Globe Theater. Oh, mighty element of fire, heed the call of your devoted servant. I was crouching on a tree branch watching this whole circus, and the only thought crossing my mind was, how in the world is this incantation still going on? 5 full seconds of theatrical chanting, complete with dramatic arm flourishes, stomping his left foot, drawing random circles in the dirt with his right foot, and finally striking a pose so over the top it would make a kabuki actor die of jealousy. Explosive fireball strike. A basketball-sized sphere of flames roared through the air and slammed straight into the trapped bear. Kaboom! The bear let out a screech as its chest turned to charcoal, filling the air with the smell of fresh barbecue. Ha ha! You see that? That is the true power of magic. Only us mages are capable of such greatness. Honestly, I'll give him credit. That raw damage output was actually pretty impressive. Far more explosive damage than my arrows could ever pack. In a single shot, but thanks to weakness insight, I noticed that while he was gathering mana for that fireball, more than half of it was escaping straight into thin air, just like water leaking from a broken bucket. All those flashy dramatic moves and loud screaming did absolutely nothing to help the spell's power. It was complete and utter waste. The guy was basically spending double the energy for half the output. If that were me, a single silent arrow from 300 meters away. No 5-second charge-up time, no ridiculous dancing, and that bear would be dead before it even knew I was there. Though I gotta admit, the kid definitely had some serious lungs on him. I couldn't help but picture him mastering a voice-amplifying spell one day. He wouldn't even need any offensive magic at that point. He could just scream directly at monsters and blast them to death with raw volume alone. Just picturing this blonde mage kid literally yelling a giant bear to death almost made me burst out laughing and ruin my cover. So I decided to leave him be. The beast was already on its last legs anyway, and those guards were real professionals, even if they were babysitting an overly dramatic actor. As for the young mage, as ridiculous as he seemed, his mana pool was legitimately impressive. Definitely top-tier apprentice level. He'd eventually grow into a force to be reckoned with. He was likely some high-ranking noble's son from the capital, using the border area of the Whispering Gray Forest as a beginner dungeon to pad out his achievement list. Turns out, this is a pretty common strategy. Wealthy kids show up here with an entire entourage of private guards, farm a bunch of easy monster kills, and head back home wearing a shiny new title. A completely different world from mine, but whatever. Not my circus, not my bear. A half hour later, the signal horn echoed through the air. The test was officially over, and the temporary staging area presented a wild contrast. Most of the participants looked like they had just been dragged through a meat grinder, limping around, covered in bandages and missing gear. Their armor completely torn to pieces and their faces painted with total. I almost died a dozen times out there exhaustion. And then there was me, spotless gear, perfectly calm breathing and without a single scratch on me, standing around like I just spent 3 relaxing days at a luxury spa, rather than surviving a death trap forest. Line up to tally your points, one by one, shouted a one-eyed instructor, the head evaluator sitting behind his desk with a massive ledger open. As teams stepped up to report, chatter broke out. Holy crap. That Cellsword squad wiped out over 100 Windwolves. Yeah, but those are all rank, one small fry, so the point conversion rate is terrible. Whoa, check it out, it's that mage kid. Golden Boy strutted right up to the table alongside his night guards, chest puffed out and practically glowing with smug satisfaction. They dumped their loot right onto the desk. A Rage Bear monster core, a Shadow Leopard core, and even a human-faced eagle. A sight that made the recording clerk's hands literally shake, considering that's a high tier. Rank 2 Elite Beast. Their grand total score came out to a massive 1,280 points, sending the surrounding crowd into a complete frenzy. That was more than double the 500-point requirement needed to pass. Golden Boy smugly adjusted his robe collar with a look that screamed, "Yep, I know I'm absolute perfection." Then came my turn, though nobody was really paying attention to me. Just another random guy rocking plain gray armor. No high-end armor, no crew backing me up. Like anyone gives a damn, right? I unclasped my spatial bag and dumped out the loot. There wasn't a massive pile of spoils, just 8 magic cores. However, the moment his eyes landed on them, that bored look on his face completely froze. He picked up a core from a petrification lizard and lifted it toward the light. The surface of the cut was flawless as glass, with every internal mana circuit remaining completely intact. There was zero cracking and absolutely no mana leakage. It looked like a top surgeon had harvested it with pinpoint accuracy, straight from a living beast. All 8 cores. Every single one was in pristine condition. That kind of quality sent a clear message. It proves the hunter didn't just manage to slay these beasts. He utterly overwhelmed them to the point where he had both the luxury and control to perform flawless extractions. Every single kill was pure surgical perfection. Setting the core back down, he stared straight at me, really sizing me up this time. "Victor, huh? Very well, Victor." He jotted something down in his record book, showing what might actually be a sign of respect. Total score, 950 points. That secured third place overall. Yet, everyone at the base could do the basic math. A 950-point score earned by a solo hunter, compared to 1,280 points scored by some mage, whose 4 top-tier bodyguards did all the heavy lifting. Those 2 achievements weren't even in the same league. The spoiled prodigy turned his head around and locked eyes with me in genuine shock. That was the first time anyone had burst his ego bubble all day. I didn't even bother acknowledging him. I didn't need to. The numbers already spoke for themselves. Once the points were tallied, the staff began packing up the camp. We had started out with around 50 candidates, but under 30 of us actually made it back. No one raised a single question about those who didn't return. That's just how these exams operate. Rule number 3. If you die out there, that's entirely on you. Upon returning to the association headquarters in Blackstone Town, they handed me my fresh identification badge. Solid silver, polished to a mirror-like shine. On the front was the guild's official insignia, crossed swords over a shield, and on the back, finely engraved, Victor, TCN 14-3461. I ran my thumb over the ice-cold metal. This little silver token opened up a whole new world. Higher security access, far better quests, entry to deeper secrets, and most crucial of all, eligibility for D-rank missions. Nice work, kid. One Eye grunted, offering a genuine grin through his scarred face. It looked like a creepy mask. Attempting a friendly expression. Appreciate it, I replied, clipping the badge to my chest, before heading straight back to my quarters. Meanwhile, the rest of the town drank every tavern bone dry. To celebrate, definitely not my style. I spent the evening doing what I do best, cleaning and tuning every piece of my gear until it shone. By the next morning, I was back at the association. The moment the doors unlocked. Silver rank unlocked, D-tier quests waiting. Deeper stretches of the forest, far deadlier beasts, and higher value bounties. The grind never stops. It just gets a whole lot more interesting. Over at the Gray Ridge hillside, the icy wind whipped past me as I stood right before old John's grave, holding a bottle of top-shelf booze. Definitely not the cheap, watered-down trash he usually chugged. This bad boy sent me back 15 silver coins for pure, fiery liquor, which is basically liquid gold out here in a border town. Honestly, the old geezer would have ripped into me for being a fool, throwing away hard-earned cash on fancy liquor. I really ought to be sharing a toast with you, old man, but I've got business to attend to. Uncorking the bottle, I dumped every single drop straight into the dirt. The rich amber liquid soaked deep into the soil, and the air filled with the scent of high-end regrets and crisp autumn air. I just stood there in silence for 3 full minutes. Didn't utter another word, didn't need to either. He never was one for big speeches, and neither am I nowadays, leaving the empty glass behind. I turned around and walked away without a backward glance. Rest easy, you grumpy old legend. Your bow might be broken, but the sharpshooter you accidentally raised is doing just fine. Fast forward to 1 p.m. at the South Gate. The supply convoy was absolutely massive. The Adventurers Guild frequently puts together these massive transport runs to haul valuable monster loot, rare medicinal plants, and crucial official files over to Frostwind City, which happens to be the nearest actual civilization, a good couple 100 miles out. See, minor local branches like the one in Blackstone aren't hooked up to the main guild's magical communication array, meaning high-priority intel has to be hand-delivered the old-fashioned way. Classic medieval internet struggles. At the heart of the convoy were 5 heavy-duty wagons, reinforced with black iron armor, and etched with protective magic wards, glowing faintly across their frame. Official guild cargo, guarded by official guild personnel. Definitely not something you mess with. Surrounding them were private merchant caravans that paid the guild a hefty fee just to ride along, under their armed protection. Honestly, a brilliant setup. The guild pockets extra funds. The merchants cut down on hiring private mercenaries, and everyone gets a much safer trip. For a freshly promoted silver rank adventurer like yours truly, this guard detail was classified as a simple D-rank quest. Basically, tag along, look intimidating, and slice up anything that attacks. An absolute dream for a first silver rank job. I was casually standing near the edge of the crowd, checking out the various merchant groups out of sheer habit, when suddenly something caught my eye. The Golden Grain Trading Company seemed completely ordinary at first glance. Just leather goods and spices. Totally boring stuff. But the guys loading their crates? That was a different story. My weakness. Inside ability doesn't just shut off when I'm out of fight. And what it picked up on was pretty intriguing. Those supposedly simple laborers had thick calluses on their hands, tough as leather. The exact kind you only develop after years of gripping a sword hilt. On top of that, their stance was remarkably firm and balanced. Classic footwork of a seasoned warrior. These guys weren't cargo porters at all. They were elite soldiers playing dress-up. Why hire undercover mercenaries for a merchant squad? That was already paying the guild for protection? Well, only double up on security like that. When the cargo you're hauling is worth way more than your own life, or something that has no business seeing the light of day. Shady business, I muttered, yanking my hood down low. Honestly, not my problem, as long as I don't get dragged into it. I couldn't care less about whatever they're hauling. I'm literally just taking this ride to catch a ticket out of this backwater hole. You see, I'd basically hit a wall back in the gray whisper forest. The middle region was the absolute limit of how far I could push it. Going any deeper meant dealing with cosmic, nightmare-tier chaos. Mean-melting folk, and monsters that view humans as nothing more than light snacks. To rank up my skills, I needed blue tier tags. And blue tags meant hunting tier 3 beasts. Creatures I couldn't consistently take down on my own. The math was brutally simple. Stick around and rot. Or head over to Frostwind City to find fresh grounds to hunt. All aboard. We're pulling out in 10 minutes. I hopped into the back of the transport wagon for adventures. Open air, cushioned with hay. Could be worse, honestly. 3 other newly minted silver rank adventurers were already sitting inside, riding high off the adrenaline of passing their trials, loudly bragging about their biggest achievements. Joe, man, you're an archer too? A red-haired guy who went by Jack clapped my shoulder, as if we'd been best buds for years. Name's Jack. Took down 2 wind wolves during the test. How about you? You're pretty quiet. First time leaving town? Aw, don't sweat it. We've got your back. Meanwhile, I was just leaning back in the corner, arms crossed, eyes half-lidded. Tired. Resting. Jack's hype instantly deflated like a popped balloon. Well, look at Mr. Mysterious over here. He grumbled under his breath, before turning right back to gushing about the women and booze. Waiting in Frostwind City with the other 2. Obviously, I wasn't actually asleep. Rule number 1 when traveling with strangers. You never actually let your guard down to sleep. Fast forward to nightfall. The convoy set up a defensive circle, with the association's wagons forming the inner ring, while the merchant camps and adventurers set up along the outer edge. A standard military setup, efficient, practical, and highly organized. As for me, while Jack and those 2 were sawing logs, within minutes, I intentionally took the spot closest to the exit, because obviously, under the cover of darkness, I pressed my palm flat against the grass underneath. Forest whisper attunement. Active. My perception extended, slithering through the underground root network. The vegetation out here was much sparser than inside the forest proper. The signals were faint, keeping my detection range limited, but it was still plenty good enough to serve as an early warning radar. The rustle of wind through grass, earthworms churning through dirt, a flowing river off in the distance, all completely normal. Normal. Then my eyebrow twitched. 300 meters out, right at the absolute edge of my radar. Something was dead wrong, and it wasn't just one creature. There were dozens of them, hundreds of small, frenzied, erratic footsteps tearing through the dense brush. These weren't the moves of an apex predator. This wasn't the calculated, steady approach of a creature stalking its prey. These were pure, panic-driven strides. Whatever they were fleeing for their lives from something far worse. And they were charging dead straight toward us, being driven like cattle right into our campsite. My eyes snapped wide open, cold dread spiking through my veins. Incoming, I called out. Low, but sharp enough to slice through the dark. Loud enough to pierce right through 3 layers of heavy snoring. Jack and the rest of the crew snapped awake instantly, looking like I had just doused them in ice-cold water. Huh, wait, is it morning already? Meanwhile, I was already outside the tent, bow in hand, before Jack could even finish rubbing the sleep from his eyes. The watchtower alarm began blaring wildly. Enemy attack. Black spot rot hounds. There's a massive wave of them. What on earth is driving these damn creatures crazy? Under the dim, flickering light of the camp's magic lanterns, the dark forest suddenly came alive with glowing green eyes. Hundreds of them. A dark, swarming tide of sick, pustule-covered beasts slamming straight into our outer defenses, like an unstoppable wave of fangs and deadly infection. Tier 1 rot hounds. Bottom-tier scavengers that are individually weaker than windwolves, but their bodies are completely covered in poisonous blisters. Their bites carry venom, and once they enter a frenzy, they lose all sense of pain. Pure quantity over quality. And right now, that quantity was literally every single one of them. Holy crap, there are way too many. Jack stumbled blindly out of the tent, his bow trembling in his hands, his face pale as a sheet. Most of the adventurers rushed toward the outer merchant wagons to push back the swarm, some without even putting their gear on properly. It was absolute, unadulterated chaos. As for me, I immediately triggered my static camouflage skill, and while everyone else was losing their minds over the dog tsunami, I quietly, calmly, and totally undetected, slipped toward the inner ring of the Guild Association's wagons. My reasoning was twofold. First off, the outer perimeter was already covered by the association's elite guards. They didn't need my help. Adding just one more archer to a firing line against over 100 rabid beasts wouldn't change a thing. Second, and this was the crucial part, these rat hounds weren't launching an assault. They were desperately running away from something in the dark. Something out there had terrified over 100 pack monsters, sending them stampeding blindly into a heavily armed human convoy. Whatever scared the hell out of them. That was the real threat, and it hadn't even shown its face yet. I crouched up on top of a supply wagon, bow half drawn, arrow knocked and ready to fly, poised like a coiled snake lurking in the shadows, scanning the dark. Beyond the madness, waiting for the monstrosity that made an entire pack of beasts run for their miserable lives. And right nearby, hidden in the gloom behind the golden grain merchant wagons, those so-called porters had completely dropped their act. Their hands rested directly on hidden sword hilts, their eyes locked tightly onto the dark tree lean, their expressions 100 times more intense than what a simple rat-hound pack called for. They knew. They felt it coming too. Something was lurking out there, something that made diseased. Killer dogs looked like nothing more than an opening warm-up act. Getting any sleep tonight? Not a chance. And Jack was the first to fall. Yeah, the same guy bragging about fine wine and women. Back in Frostwind City just 6 short hours ago. The very guy who slapped my shoulder and bragged, "Don't worry, bro, we've got your back." That exact guy. He was taking cover behind a wagon, desperately trying to blind fire into the dark with his flashy longbow, when a rat-hound slammed right into him like a black cannonball. It didn't bother circling or trying to flank him. Skipped every single tactical maneuver a wind wolf usually pulls. It literally just threw itself through the air, smacked the bow straight out of his hands, and ripped right through his throat, as if it were made of thin tissue paper. Just like that, he was flat on his back in the mud, clutching his neck while blood gushed out, turning his shiny new leather gear into a bloody mess, staring up at the open sky, in utter disbelief at what was happening to him. And honestly, how could he? Because just yesterday, he was the big-shot hero who took down 2 wind wolves. Yet tonight, he's bleeding out in the dirt. Because reality doesn't give out second chances. Help, help! His fingers twitched twice before going completely limp. Rest in peace, Jack. You were a pain in the ass, but no one deserves to go out like that. Embrace yourselves, because that was only the warm-up. Hold the line. Don't let them breach. The veteran adventurers were desperately barking out orders. But it was completely useless. These rat hounds weren't just fighting. They were straight-up kamikazing themselves. They would hurl their bodies onto the spears, get impaled, and deliberately detonate their oozing boils on impact, spraying highly corrosive acid in every direction. It hissed into clouds of white steam as it ate through armor, triggering agonized screams wherever it hit bare flesh. 3 minutes. That's literally all the defensive line could withstand. Just 3 short minutes before their formation completely shattered. A shield bearer managed to swat away 2 hounds, only to get tackled by a third before 4 more swarmed right on top of him. I had a front row seat from the top of the wagon, as he completely vanished under a writhing mass of rotten fur and toxic slime. And when the swarm finally dispersed, there wasn't even enough left of him to identify. The entire outer perimeter turned into an absolute bloodbath. Severed limbs scattered across the dirt, guts spilled everywhere, and blood-curdling screams echoing all around. As for me, I was lying pancake flat on top of a supply carriage like a freaking gecko, cranking my stealth skill up to the absolute max, breathing so faintly that I basically blended in like a piece of cargo. Rat hounds were sprinting directly underneath me, and not a single one even bothered to look up. In the middle of a chaotic war zone filled with deafening noise, flying blood, and pure mayhem, I was the quietest thing alive. I kept my eyes fixed on Jack's body from my vantage point, watching the life completely drain from his eyes from 30 meters away. Farewell, Jack. Welcome to the brutal reality of this fantasy world. No hand-holding tutorials, no respawn checkpoints. The guy who was sharing a drink with you yesterday is literally monster chow today. But wait, where the hell was the guild's heavy hitter? The outer vanguard was getting completely slaughtered, yet the heavy armored carriages in the center hadn't even budged. They hadn't even cracked a door open. People were literally being torn apart out here, and they were just kicking back inside until, asterisk boom, asterisk, A massive shock wave slammed into me so hard it rattled my internal organs. This wasn't magic. It was something far heavier. A roar so immense it felt like the very atmosphere shuddered. Battle aura. Pure, unadulterated physical energy condensed into raw, killing intent. Annoying pests. A voice boomed out like grinding rocks. The reinforced iron door of the main carriage didn't just swing open. It got violently blown right off its hinges. And stepping out was an absolute unit of a man built like a grizzly bear. Stepped out as a living, breathing person. Decked out in dark gold half-plate armor. With shoulders broader than the actual doorway. And, resting right on top of one shoulder, was a two-handed greatsword so absurdly huge. It basically looked like he was slinging a literal door. This guy was the association's escort commander. A legitimate, fully certified professional warrior. He didn't bother checking on the wounded. Didn't even acknowledge the chaos and screaming. He just coldly scanned the massive pack of red hounds, swarming through the broken barricade, like he was casually sizing up a minor pest issue. He grabbed the massive hilt using just one hand, single-handedly wielding a blade meant for two hands, and gave his wrist a quick flick. A visible shockwave violently erupted from his frame, unleashing a golden battle aura, forged over years of grueling combat, breathing mastery. Then he made his move with a single swing, just a plain, basic horizontal cleave, except the speed was so insane. It left a blazing golden afterimage hanging in the air, a massive 5-meter crescent of golden sword aura, ripped off the blade and surged across the dirt, tearing forward like a bulldozer of pure destruction. Splat, splat, splat. Splat, splat. Every single red hound caught in its path didn't even get the chance to whimper. They were instantly sliced clean down the middle. Black blood shredded insides, and shattered bones instantly pulverized into a fine gory mist, floating in a lingering golden light, looking like the most sickening snow globe ever created. One casual swing, dozens wiped out, leaving a perfect fan-shaped crater of empty space, where an entire wall of beasts had just been standing. A half-foot deep trench was violently carved right into the dirt, purely from the sheer shockwave of residual energy. Every surviving adventurer stood completely paralyzed, jaw-dropped, their weapons limply dangling, their brains totally failing to process what just happened. This is what a real professional warrior looks like. One single strike and the fight was over. The entire situation instantly reversed. The warrior slammed the tip of his great sword into the earth, sending mud flying as he glared out into the pitch-black treeline. Anyone else? His voice surging with battle aura, echoed across the night sky like rolling thunder. The remaining red hounds, the ones actually smart enough to survive, didn't waste a single second. They whipped around and bolted back into the treeline, almost like they had just been handed a strict retreat order. Vanished just like that. Hundreds of glowing green eyes disappearing into the darkness. We actually survived. They're pulling back. The monsters ran. The survivors burst into hysterical cheers and tears, hugging each other and frantically grabbing for health potions. It was total sheer relief, but the warrior didn't join in. He remained standing guard for one agonizingly long, freezing minute before turning back toward his carriage. Clean this mess up. We move at 6 o'clock. He slammed the door shut like this whole ordeal was beneath him. Meanwhile, I hadn't budged an inch from the carriage roof. My active camouflage was still completely active. My breathing stayed entirely steady, and my heart rate didn't spike even a bit. However, my mind was spinning after seeing that golden sword swing. The power to project life energy outward into a physical force of pure destruction was a concept that went completely far beyond anything I could currently comprehend. I had heard stories about high-tier knights and warriors using special breathing techniques to push their physical limits to superhuman heights, but actually witnessing it in person, if that strike was aimed at me, I'd be dead in an instant. No chance to dodge, no way to block, no clever tricks, just instant death. The power gap between an amateur like me and a real elite warrior wasn't just a simple gap. It was a massive canyon. Still, my attention shifted from the deep trench carved into the dirt, toward the dark, pitch-black woods where those beasts had fled. Something felt totally off. Everyone else was busy celebrating just because some powerful guy swung his giant, terrifying sword and chased the scary monster dogs away. A simple scenario with a happy ending, right? Except for one thing. Those hounds were treated way too smoothly. Panicked beasts don't disengage in an orderly formation. They break rank, trip over one another in a frenzy, and scatter in every random direction possible. Yet these red hounds pulled back like a disciplined military force. moving simultaneously in the exact same direction, at the exact same pace. That wasn't blind panic. That was a direct tactical order. Someone, or something, lurking in the shadows had ordered them to fall back. Just like a player resetting chess pieces to reevaluate the board. This entire raid was a setup, a cold, calculated, and tactically brilliant probing attack. Sacrifice expendable fodder units to ambush the caravan. Observe how they react, gauge their defensive strength, and identify their strongest combatant. And now, whoever pulled the strings behind this ambush knows for a fact that an elite warrior is guarding the transport, knows his estimated combat capability, and understands the entire layout of the convoy's defenses. If tonight was merely a reconnaissance mission, then when is the actual main force going to strike? I glanced at the cheer-filled mercenaries, who foolishly assumed the danger was over, then looked toward the locked iron carriage, and finally at the golden gray merchant guards, who still gripped the hilts of their blades tight, without showing even a hint of celebration. Yeah, this journey is about to turn into a complete bloodbath. I quietly deactivated my stealth skill, intentionally tousled my hair, and climbed down to make it look like I barely survived. The chaotic battle, just like the rest of them, blending into the background, playing the role of a terrified, weak silver rank nobody. Because if there really is a hidden mastermind lurking in those woods, smart enough to deploy 100 red hounds just to scout out the enemy, the last thing I ever want is to draw any attention to myself. Let that golden knight take all the spotlight and act as the primary target. Let him draw every single eye in the area. I'm just a survivor looking out for myself, not some grand hero. And survivors are the ones who stay alive. Hey, you made it out alive. One of my 2 tent mates limped over toward me, his arm dripping with blood and a look of sheer trauma on his face. Just got lucky, I replied calmly. I stooped down beside a dead red hound and pulled out an arrow that was still lodged deep inside its corpse, one of Jack's arrows. I wiped off the thick blood with a piece of cloth and quietly slid it back into my own quiver. Where's Jack? He asked anxiously. I simply pointed over toward what remained of his corpse. Quiet settled over the lead wagon. Then came a long, heavy sigh. This world is complete trash. I just nodded along. Yeah, pure trash. Glancing up toward the tree line. The pre-dawn pitch black was as thick as it gets. It was the kind of darkness that felt like it was staring right back, like a massive, starving maw wide open, glaring at our tiny circle of firelight. And broken survivors. Whatever was lurking out there had patience. Whatever was out there was smart. And it definitely wasn't done with us yet. You see, humans are masters at 2 specific things. Numbing themselves to absolute horror, and immediately forgetting that horror ever even happened. We literally just survived a night of pure slaughter. Dozens slaughtered, rothound acid melting human faces right off. Yet, by the very next morning, the moment word spread that our escort was Ryan, a high-ranking powerhouse from the Fighters Guild, who had literally soloed a 5th-tier frost dragon. Suddenly everybody acts like everything's totally fine. Oh, the big strong warrior will keep us safe. Let's go back to chatting about our business plans for Frostwind City. Day 2. Complete silence. Nothing happened. Everyone was still on edge, scanning the tree line, white-knuckling their weapons, myself included. Night of Day 2. Total radio silence. Not a single cricket chirped. An insanely eerie quiet. Nobody dared to bring it up out loud. Then came Day 3. Clear skies, effortless travel. A soft breeze, just a night wind, and zero trouble. And that's exactly when false comfort set in. By the evening of Day 4, as we set up camp in a wide-open area, known as Broken Cliff Pass, people were casually rolling dice near the campfire, literally playing games like they were on a cozy vacation, completely ignoring the fact that we were in the territory of something calculating enough to throw 100 suicide hounds at us just to test our strength. Barely 4 days prior, the injured adventurer, my only surviving tent mate, offered me a piece of jerky, acting completely unfazed. Hey, just one more day, man. We'll be staring at Frostwind City's walls by noon tomorrow. That ambush before was probably just a fluke. Just a pack of desperate, starving beasts, right? Meanwhile, I was perched on top of a wagon roof, meticulously polishing every single arrow shaft with a piece of deerskin, because that's what you do when you know deep down that death is coming, even if you can't prove it yet. A fluke. I glanced over at the sealed iron wagon, assessed the surrounding landscape, and ran the numbers under my breath, just loud enough for me to hear. The closer we get to the city, the higher the chances of an ambush. If I were in their shoes, tonight is their absolute last window to strike. Right on cue. Everyone, grab your weapons. Ryan's iron wagon slammed open, and a massive mountain of a man stormed out in full armor. His massive greatsword already unsheathed. His muscles tensed like solid carved granite. He had a look on his face terrifying enough to curdle milk. If you want to survive, draw your steel right now. They're here, and as if the universe were cueing. His exact sound effects, whoosh. A javelin engulfed in. Sickly green flames came screaming down from the cliff overhead, impaling itself dead center into the main campfire. Boom! The green fire detonated, radiating no heat, just pure, acid-like destruction. The splashed tents and horses instantly began melting with a horrific, sizzling noise as screams erupted once more. It's always screams, but then the ground started violently shaking. No, it wasn't the rot hounds this time. Those were just the appetizer. This was the actual main course. A wild boar cavalry, a full assault force of dark red-skinned goblins, each about 3 feet tall and heavily armored, were riding ironclad war boars. Every single unit packed half a ton of combined goblin and hog momentum, and over 100 of them were now surging out from the pitch-black darkness, like a straight-up stampede from hell. Weak on their own, but together, they formed an iron wave set to obliterate everything in sight. Hold the outer perimeter. Engage, the caravan leader screamed, shouting orders everyone could hear, but absolutely no one could follow. Why? Because that outer defense consisted of mercenaries, who were literally gambling 30 seconds ago. And now, they were taking head-on hits from half-ton battering. Rams with legs. Guys were sent flying left and right, getting utterly crushed. Our outer defensive line collapsed like soggy cardboard. The second that javelin hit, I was already making my move. Guerrilla archery, tactical repositioning. I leaped backward, heading straight for the inner circle, where the association's armored carriages were stationed. That's the safe zone. That's where Ryan is. That's where I need to wait. I was wrong. Or rather, I completely underestimated just how ruthless these scumbags truly are. Ryan whipped out a scroll, a thick, earth yellow, high-grade, magical spell scroll, and ripped it in half without a second thought. Third circle defensive magic, wall of earth. Boom! A translucent amber barrier, looking like hardened honey, erupted from the ground, around the 5 association carriages, and completely sealed them off from above. It was a flawless dome of magic power, unbreakable and incredibly cramped. It shielded only the association's transports and their crew. Literally, just the association vehicles and their staff. Every single trader, every mercenary, and every civilian who paid for safe passage was left stranded outside, including me. Wait, what? A merchant rushed up to the barrier and began desperately pounding his fists against it. Less inside, I paid the protection fee. Lord Ryan, I beg you. Ryan just stood inside the dome, coldly staring down at the faces, pressed tightly against the amber barrier. Faces twisted in pure horror. The very people who had put their trust in him. My apologies, his voice leaked out, muffled and utterly devoid of any human empathy. Hostile forces far exceed initial estimates. Under Association Emergency Protocol 17, I am obligated to protect high-priority assets first. You're on your own. Before that merchant could even scream again, a boar rider slammed right into his back. A massive tusk impaled straight through his chest, bursting out the front. Blood splattered all over the glowing golden shield, slowly dripping down like paint running on glass. So this is how the massive syndicates actually do business. I hugged my body tightly, against the outer edge of the barrier's shadow, watching the blood spill onto the dirt. My eyes felt entirely numb, like ice. No pounding on the barrier, no screaming obscenities, no wasting energy. I had to think. Brainstorm. That barrier was completely off limits. Ryan made his decision, secure the precious cargo, and discard everyone else. A simple, ruthless equation. To a guy like him, we were never human. Just expendable numbers on a casualty report. Whatever. I've been treated as disposable my whole life. And I'm still kicking. Time for plan B. I shifted my gaze toward the remaining fighters and traders, desperately trying to hold off the boar riders. They were getting completely wiped out, but pure panic makes people fight like cornered beasts. Every single survivor drawing breath meant another meat shield, taking the heat off me. More live bodies meant higher odds of my survival. Is it a cold-blooded logic? Absolutely. But hey, I picked it up right from Ryan's playbook, literally 30 seconds ago. So I'd say I learned from the best. Static camouflage, activate. Instantly, I faded into a phantom on the fringes of the war zone, weaving behind the overturned supply carts for cover. Then my bow began its silent, deadly song, twang. An arrow infused with wind magic sliced straight through the mayhem, shattering directly into a goblin rider's eye socket. It was dead before its body even hit the ground. Its ownerless giant boar went completely rampant, getting hacked to pieces by the nearest mercenaries. Twang! Twang! 2 more lethal headshots. I wasn't aiming to flex a high kill count. I was performing tactical battlefield triage. Every shot was calculated to hit a goblin that was about to break through a defensive line or overrun a helpless cluster of survivors. Pure, clinical precision, eliminating the highest threat targets on the chessboard. Against all odds, the outer perimeter that should have collapsed managed to hold on, all thanks to a phantom marksman, whose existence they didn't even suspect. However, this was just a temporary fix on a fatal wound, because the true nightmare finally decided to step onto the stage. Hee. Quite the sturdy little shell you've got yourself inside. A raspy, sickening cackle resonated. From the pitch-black darkness behind the cavalry, a shadowy figure stepped out, draped in tattered black robes, wielding a sinister staff crowned with a human skull. The atmosphere surrounding him was literally distorting from the sheer pressure of dark aura. Every blade of grass and plant near his feet shriveled and decayed into ash instantly. A demon warlock, and a high-tier one at that. A monster who had already completed a bloody abyssal sacrificial ritual. This wasn't some low-level hedge wizard slinging basic hexes. This was a true raid boss. Step forth, my precious babies. He raised his skull staff high, and a rift of deep, crimson energy tore open right in midair before him, spewing out stifling heat and the stench of sulfur. Rower. 3 colossal monstrosities leapt out from the rift. Massive, muscle-bound beasts shaped like hounds, engulfed in fiery brimstone, with molten lava dripping continuously from their maws, and eyes burning like blazing furnace fires. Lava hellhounds. So the goblin riders were just the vanguard. The swift pack hounds were merely the scouts. And this absolute psycho with his hellish beasts was the real threat. Turns out to be the mastermind behind everything. This entire time, locking eyes with those 3 fiery abominations. A wave of pure dread hit me right in the gut. Yeah, tonight is turning out way worse than I ever anticipated. Those hellhounds were locked onto a single target. Ryan's glowing golden defense. 3 massive emerald green fireballs smashed directly into the earthen wall. Crack, crack, crack. That supposedly unbreakable shield instantly began spiderwebbing with cracks. Turns out magic scrolls are just one-time items, and demon flames snack on those for breakfast. Ryan's smug, arrogant face finally broke, replaced by pure panic. I'm heading out there. Hold down the fort inside. He rocketed off the top of the carriage. Like a golden streak, his massive sword, erupting with 10 feet of overwhelming aura. Surrounded by raw sword energy, he charged straight at the warlock. First move? He swatted a lava hound right out of the sky, so hard. He knocked the hellfire right out of it, literally smacked a demon beast like it was a tennis ball. Then he drove straight into the warlock, forcing that rogue creep on his back foot. For about 10 brief seconds, it actually looked like we might pull through, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood straight up. My blind fight sense was screaming red alert. Something freezing cold, colder than ice, colder than fear itself, was gliding across the terrain at a terrifying speed, weaving right through the chaotic battle, straight toward Ryan's blind spot. There was another one. Ryan's shadow literally stood up, and I don't mean figuratively. His actual shadow, detached from the dirt and materialized into a human figure. A wanderer class, basically a shadow assassin. 2 pitch-black daggers dripping with deadly venom emerged right out of the darkness beneath Ryan, striking in the exact split second between his attacks, when he was completely exposed. Behind you, an association guard bellowed from within the barrier. But shouts can't outrun blades. Both daggers aimed straight for lethal spots, the spine and the neck. Combat instincts kicked in, forcing Ryan to twist at the last possible millisecond. He saved his spine, but couldn't clear his shoulder. The poisoned blade sank deep into his left shoulder, and the blood spurting out was jet black, deadly venom, no question. A Fighters Guild executive? Not so tough after all. The shadow assassin flipped backward, landing beside the warlock, casually spinning a blood-stained dagger. 2 high-tier threats, totally fresh and in sync, against 1 poison fighter with a useless arm. That's no longer a fight. That's an execution. And that's precisely why I couldn't just kick back and watch the show. Because if Ryan goes down, those 2 killers won't have anything left to fight. Except us. They just turn around and butcher every single survivor trapped outside the barrier, including myself. Ryan is the only thing keeping the 2 deadliest monsters on this field from coming over. and hunting us down like cattle. If the front line collapses, we're all dead meat, just like the old saying goes, which was pretty spot on, given that he was literally the only thing standing between me and a pair of ruthless killers. Knocking an arrow, I tried to calculate if I could pick off the Wanderer from this distance, but then everything went completely off the rails. Turns out, tonight's little party had a few uninvited guests over on the far side of the camp, right where the Golden Grain Company had parked their merchant wagons. A horde of masked assassins clad in blood red and pitch-black leather exploded out of the darkness. Slaughter them all. Don't leave a single survivor. These guys weren't gunning for the Adventure Association, nor were they after Ryan. They were making a beeline straight for those merchant caravans, hacking down anyone unlucky enough to be nearby. Traitors, adventurers, innocent bystanders. They were butchering everybody in sight. Case in point, an archer, who'd been providing cover fire right beside me a second ago, got completely blindsided by a masked maniac, leaping out from behind a cart, cleaving off half his head in one brutal swing. Son of a... Forget about backing up, Ryan. I was about to end up in a body bag myself. 5 shadowy killers immediately swarmed my position, marking me as just another obstacle to wipe out. 3 rushing in from the left, 2 flaking from the right, activating weakness insight to maximum level. And suddenly the entire world shifted. Every single assassin lit up like a living tactical diagram of crimson lines and glaring white targets, gaps in their armor, weight shifts in their stance, the precise blind spots in their tactical formation. I could map out every single detail. So instead of falling back, I charged straight into the 3 on the left. Suicidal idiot, the lead assassin sneered, bringing his curved scimitar down in a lethal arc. The cold steel was millimeters from my skin when my body pulled off a maneuver that my old self would have deemed anatomical nonsense. I contorted my torso at a completely impossible angle, folding like a piece of paper caught in a gust of wind. Blind fight, swordplay evasion in full effect. The blade sliced through thin air, where my chest had been a fraction of a second prior. Mid-dodge, I half drew my bow, firing point blank. Who needs range when you've got pure, unadulterated force? Guerrilla archery. Wind burst mode. Twang. That arrow didn't just pierce him, it straight up detonated. All the compressed wind magic coiled around the arrowhead, erupted outwards like a tactical flashbang. The lead killer took the full brunt of the shockwave, dead center in his chest, blasted backward like he'd been hit by an 18-wheeler, plowing directly into the guy behind him. Meanwhile, the massive recoil spun me around midair in a flawless pirouette, leaving my back completely exposed to the 2 remaining assassins on the right, who were already lunging for the kill. Except, I didn't even need eyes on them. My back basically had eyes now. Hell, my hair had eyes. Every single micro-displacement of air from their incoming blades set off alarm bells straight through my nervous system. Flipping an arrow into a reverse grip, I thrust it backward, completely blind, and the arrowhead found the exact opening in his neck guard, executed with absolute precision, leaving assassin number 4 choking on his own blood. Using the leftover spin momentum, I whipped out my short sword for a low sweep, slicing clean through assassin number 5's Achilles tendons. All in 3 seconds, 1 dead, 3 maimed, and 1 drop cold. I stood right in the middle of that bloody pool, expressionless, as my stealth glitched from the sheer exertion. For a split second, my real eyes peeked through, dark and ice-cold, completely devoid of even a shred of mercy. Then the utter chaos swallowed me right back up. There was way too much noise, way too much fire, and too many bodies for anyone to keep track of me. Just a gray shadow slipping past the golden grain wagons. Those porters had finally dropped their helpless act. Turns out, these guys were serious warriors, just as strong as me, maybe even stronger. They were locked in a life-and-death clash with the red and black assassins, until one porter tore open a magic scroll. A radiant golden light rained down from the sky, and 5 spectral knights summoned out of thin air, clad in full golden plate armor with giant tower shields and glowing spears. They instantly formed a defensive wall surrounding the Golden Grain Squad, interlocking their shields to throw up a golden barrier. Yet another dome, another group caring only about themselves. The Warlock and the Shadow Assassin actually paused their assault on Ryan, finally catching sight of this golden light spectacle. The look on their faces completely changed. They definitely hadn't accounted for this wild card. 2 completely separate ambushes had just collided right into each other at the exact same camp on the exact same night. Now Ryan, being no idiot, capitalized on their distraction instantly. With one massive wave of aura, he blasted both foes back and retreated safely behind his amber dome, where association medics immediately bombarded him with healing potions, leaving me stuck right between two magical shields. One amber, one gold, shielding two selfish factions who couldn't give a damn if I lived or died. Association Dome? Sorry. VIP members only. Golden Grain Dome? Sorry. Company staff only. Victor. I was literally the living embodiment of a guy, trapped between two lifeboats. As the ship went down and both boats were full, stealth at max, weakness insight fully active, scantily searching for any possible way out of this three-way battle royale nightmare. 0 allies, 0 shields, 0 protection, just my raw skills, my trusty arrows, and a stubborn refusal to die in somebody else's war. Boss, we can't breach that golden shield. Even our alchemy bombs aren't leaving a dent. The assassin leader was clearly losing his cool. Sure, they had shredded the unprotected adventurers like paper, leaving blood and bodies scattered everywhere. But their main objective was the Golden Grain Company, and that golden barrier wasn't budging. That's when the warlock decided to step in and end it all. He took a menacing step forward. Plus, every corpse and blade of grass he walked past had its life force drained away, sucked dry like juice through a straw. His glowing green eyes locked onto both barriers, Rhine's amber dome and the golden shield, and basically decided, why pick one when I can just blow up everything? Raising his skull staff, he began chanting, and the air instantly thickens with the smell of sulfur. A dark red orb started expanding at the tip of his staff, getting bigger and bigger, distorting space around it with pure intensity. The sheer wave of magic pressure hit me like a physical punch, even all the way from my hiding spot under the flipped wagon. Using my weakness insight skill, I could see his internal mana circuits surging into overdrive, just like watching a nuclear reactor about to melt down. This thing is going straight through both barriers. We're not talking about a tiny spark or a standard fireball here. This is a tier 4 spell, a literal city block leveler, and everything within a 50-meter radius is about to be erased. A complete bomb. Even the assassin leader realized what was about to happen. Everyone fall back now. His own squad started fleeing from their teammate's spell, and you know things are bad when the villains themselves are terrified of their own ally. The warlock's grin was unhinged madness, as the dark sun at the end of his staff hit maximum density. Taste the agony of the flame demon's wrath. He raised his staff to slam it down, when suddenly my instincts picked up something, not from the ground, but coming right from above, piercing through the cloud cover. It was a sound I had never heard in this world before. A sharp, deafening sonic boom. A streak of blue and white light tore across the night sky like a falling star. A giant javelin, a massive knight's lance forged from pure mithril, encoded in thunder runes, plummeted from 1,000 meters up, moving at a speed that outright defied physics. It slammed right into the lava hound shielding the warlock. It didn't just injure it or knock it back. It completely deleted it, punching straight through its skull, and driving the creature's entire body into the solid stone floor so hard that the rock caved in right before the thunder runes detonated, reducing whatever was left into a scorching black sludge. Just one single javelin, one demon hound, absolute 0 remains. The warlock's spell blew up in his face mid-cast, and a magical backlash slammed into him like a runaway freight train. He coughed up black blood as his own concentrated fireball detonated right in his face, sending him stumbling backward, looking like a burnt scarecrow. That's when the heavens broke wide open. Piercing screeching calls echoed. No, the shriek of griffins ripping through the clouds. Majestic, terrifying, and truly fit for royalty, roaring down from above. The heavy cloud layer tore apart, revealing the cavalry reinforcements. 20 fully grown griffins swooping down in a flawless V formation, each boasting a 5-meter wingspan and lightweight mithril chainmail. Their glowing eyes cutting through the dark like searchlights, and mounted on their backs were knights clad in gleaming silver-white plate armor, wielding 4-meter lances crackling with raw blue lightning. Arcs of electricity leaped between the tip of every lance, weaving a deadly grid of death across the sky. It's them, the Frostwind City Griffin Knights. Fall back. It's a main army. Retreat right now. The assassin chief, who just moments ago was screaming, kill them all, leave nobody alive, was now shrieking, like a guy who just realized he brought a butter knife to a nuclear showdown. A high-tech aerial military squadron going up against low-level street thugs isn't even a battle, It's a total mismatch. It's straight up throwing ants into a running lawnmower. Not a single person tried to fight back, not even for a second. The warlock shattered some kind of emergency escape item and melted into a cloud of black mist, scrambling into the deep forest. Despite the excruciating magic backlash, the Shadow Wanderer triggered a shadow step ability and vanished into thin air. The remaining assassins scattered like cockroaches. When the room lights get flicked on, wipe them out. Leave no survivors. A cold, authoritative voice boomed from the heavens. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. More lightning infused. Spears came raining down, pinning the stragglers directly to the ground, like pinned bugs in a display case. Every impact crater crackled with leftover electrical energy. One single sweep, and the fight was over. Life-threatening situation completely handled. I was lying beneath my flipped-over wagon, peeking up at those 20 lethal griffins circling above, through a crack in the wooden planks, and my mouth was practically touching the dirt. So this is what real military firepower looks like. Money buys griffins, and griffins buy absolute dominance. It really is that simple. Everything I've built up so far, all my clever plays, my stealth tactics, my hidden run kiting, my tag-boosted abilities, is literally nothing next to 20 elite knights, raining lightning down from the sky. Talk about a humbling, eye-opening reality check. I need to get stronger, a hell of a lot stronger. I completely suppressed my presence to absolute zero and crawled out, blending right in with the other shell-shocked survivors, just looking like a beat-up silver rank. Nobody who barely managed to survive. The griffins touched down, the massive gust from their wings blowing away the heavy metallic stench of blood. The lead knight captain, a sharp-featured, middle-aged guy, exuding serious aura, stepped down from his mount and walked straight toward the association's magic barrier. Ryan limped out, propped up by 2 guards, his left shoulder armor stripped off, to reveal a nasty wound that had turned a sickly, purplish-black from the Wanderer's lethal venom. Looking rough, Executive Ryan, the knight captain saluted. 3rd Griffin Unit of Frostwind City, dispatched for backup. Looks like we pulled up just in the nick of time. Captain Carter, your arrival couldn't have been timed better. Ryan's voice sounded strained, yet completely calm. Carter glanced across the bloody battlefield. Corpses littered everywhere, blast craters, and burning wagon remains, and furrowed his brow. At the very least, a high-tier warlock and a wanderer, along with a massive hit squad. Ryan didn't bother responding directly. Instead, he shifted his focus and locked his eyes onto the Golden Grain Company's caravans. As their shimmering barrier finally dissolved, the surviving traders began stepping out into the open, brushing off the debris while their core team remained virtually untouched, all thanks to their hidden muscle and that emergency summoning scroll. The chubby head merchant was already shuffling forward, sporting his most sycophantic grin possible. Lord Ryan, Captain Carter, we can't thank you enough for saving our lives. If you hadn't stepped in with such miraculous power, our Golden Grain Guild would have been totally wiped out. Ryan's cold response could have instantly chilled boiling magma, causing the merchant's fake smile to instantly vanish, snuffed out like a flame in a violent storm. Ryan shoved his supporting guards aside, marched right up to the heavy-set guy, and stood towering over him menacingly. Honestly, the sheer bloodlust bleeding off him in that moment felt way more terrifying than when he was going head-to-head with the actual demon warlock. Gratitude, Ryan growled through clenched teeth. Oh, you'd better be grateful. But what I really want to know right now is who gave you the nerve to play the adventurers? Guild like a bunch of brainless idiots. The merchant's face turned ghost white. And my lord, what do you mean? Were the victims here too? Victims? Ryan angrily gestured to the corpses scattered across the dirt. Guild guards, everyday adventurers like Jack. Innocent people who took on what was supposed to be a simple escort gig, only to end up dead because somebody dragged a massive bullseye onto their backs. His deadly glare locked onto the Golden Grain porters, the exact guys whose combat-worn hands I clocked on day 1. A high-tier 3rd Circle Guardian summoning scroll, plus 6 trained mercenaries posing as common porters. Ryan took another step forward, and even while poisoned and down an arm, his overwhelming aura literally made the merchant stumble back in fear. You knew those hitmen were tailing you. You knew you were hauling something people would murder for, and you deliberately kept it secret when you tagged along with his caravan. Meanwhile, I stayed huddled in the shadows, watching a crippled, venom-afflicted powerhouse absolutely shred a sleazy trader who had just gotten scores of innocent mercenaries slaughtered, all because of his own greed and spinelessness. Though to be fair, you guys threw us to the wolves behind your magic barrier first. Big guy. You don't exactly hold the high moral ground here, either. Naturally, I kept that little thought strictly to myself, right where it belonged because, well, the only situation worse than getting caught between two magic shields is getting caught in the middle of two heavy hitters. Having a heated confrontation. Stay invisible. Keep your mouth shut, and let the big players tear into each other. The cockroach survival strategy remains fully operational. Ryan's booming roar hit the crowd like a lightning strike, and suddenly, every single surviving adventurer instantly realized how badly they'd been played. The relief on their faces sourly twisted into pure rage, turning faster than milk left out in the summer heat. I stood off to the side, taking it all in, unable to stop thinking about Jack, his red hair matted in the mud, that wide-eyed disbelief frozen on his face. Dead, all because some fat merchant decided to use our entire unit as meat shields, just to cover whatever black market contraband he was moving. Lord Ryan, please. This is all a massive misunderstanding. The merchant leader began breaking out into a cold sweat. Save your excuses for Frostwind City. Ryan turned toward Captain Carter and officially demanded a full-scale investigation. The Golden Grain Company had obviously been smuggling something far beyond what they originally declared. Back when they signed up for the convoy, something deadly enough to draw in a high-tier warlock, a shadow assassin, and a whole squad of masked hitmen. And they had intentionally kept it hidden, knowing damn well that every clueless adventurer and merchant sitting next to them was basically just human shield fodder. Impound all Golden Grain personnel and cargo. If anyone resists, feel free to put them down. Execute Directive 20. The Griffin Knights lowered their lances and boxed in the Golden Grain crew, forming the most intimidating wall you've ever seen. The chubby merchant's expression shifted from, "Thank you for saving us," to, "I'm about to ruin these pants." In a split second, power plays between the big shots. I mumbled, blending quietly into the line of survivors, getting checked in. But while everyone was distracted by the drama, I actually made myself useful. I helped clear out the battlefield extremely thoroughly. I touched pretty much every single corpse, friend and foe alike. Yet, not a single tag dropped from any of them. These fighters were always stronger than old John. Seasoned assassins, elite mercenaries, hardened war veterans, and still nothing. Zeal attacks. This just proved my theory. Extracting tags from human beings takes more than just pure physical strength. You need that dying obsession, that burning sense of regret, that raw emotion of, "I refuse to let it end like this." Old John had it. Decades of unfulfilled dreams, packed right into his very last breath. Meanwhile, random mercs getting wiped out in an ambush, they just die mad. Anger alone isn't enough. It has to run deeper. Interesting. Filing that away for later. The final death toll for the entire trip? Roughly an 80% casualty rate among the non-association travelers. For every 5 people who set off on this journey, 4 ended up dead, and Ryan was clearly fixing to pin the whole tragedy on the Golden Grain Company. Politically, it was a smart play. Sure, they provoked the attack by smuggling secret cargo, but let's be real here. Most of those people died because a certain someone put up a magical barrier that shielded only the association's own people, leaving everyone else to basically pray and die. Calling that out would be instant suicide, though, so I kept my mouth shut. Like the professional cockroach survivor I am, the convoy dragged itself through the night, with the Griffin Knights patrolling the skies above. Even so, I popped Forest Whisper Attunement for a quick perimeter scan, because old habits die hard, and I'm not planning on dying anytime soon if I can help it. By noon the following day, the massive white walls of Frostwind City finally came into view, loomed up from the distant horizon, looking like a massive mountain forged from pure civilization. I finally caught my breath for the first time in days. Flanked by our Griffin escort, we passed right through the heavily fortified gates, without a single issue, but the second I stepped inside, talk about major, unbelievable culture shock. The roads were paved with actual carved stone, seamlessly fitted together, smooth enough for carriages to glide along effortlessly. There wasn't a single sketchy puddle of random filth in sight. The air carried the rich scent of freshly baked bread, exotic spices, and fine leather. A huge upgrade from that constant something died nearby stench that hung over Blackstone Town. Towering white walls surged up the mountainside in tiers, resembling the jagged fangs of some colossal guardian beast. Griffin Knights were taking off and landing from high watchtowers above, the sheer force of their wings shaking the air with a steady, deep rumble that basically warned everyone. Try making trouble here, and this city will obliterate you. The local branch of the Adventurers Association made the one back in Blackstone look like a glorified wooden shack, trying way too hard to flex. It featured a massive vaulted ceiling, crystal chandeliers, and dozens of reception counters, all packed with long, active queues. Now, this was a high-tier setup. The moment we arrived, staff members swarmed around Rhine like anxious bees fussing over an injured queen. Executive Rhine, the guild master, requests your immediate presence in the top floor boardroom. They announced. They said requests, but they clearly meant right now. Their eyes darted to his missing shoulder plate and that nasty poison wound, and I caught the brief look of pure panic on their faces before they quickly forced their professional composure back on. Rhine headed off without saying a word, followed by an entire entourage of high-ranking officials. Meanwhile, the Golden Grain merchants were marched away, under heavy guard with their chubby leader, looking like a dead man walking straight to his own execution. Well, the big shots can go handle their drama upstairs. It was time for me to grab my reward and disappear. I located the emergency processing desk, the priority fast-track lane for mission survivors, and slapped my adventurer ID right onto the desk. Reporting mission completion. Blackstone Supply Convoy Escort, designation D741. 41. The clerk logged it at record-breaking speed. It was obvious. She'd been crunching crisis paperwork all day long. Standard payout is 10 gold coins. However, given the unforeseen complications during the escort, the association is adding a 5 gold coin bonus. A hazard bonus, huh? Yeah, right. That's just a nice corporate way of saying, please don't go around telling people how we trapped you outside the barrier wall and left you to get slaughtered. Total hush money. Honestly, though, hush money spins just as well as honest coin. Much appreciated. Those 15 gold coins vanished into my pocket, faster than a sleight of hand trick, and I slipped out of that hall before anyone even had a chance to start asking questions, giving a formal statement, or even worse, getting dragged right into whatever political mess was brewing between the association, the military corps, and the Golden Grain Company. Look, I'm just a nobody. And nobodies don't sit in high-level meetings. They make a quick exit. After spending 30 minutes checking out the commercial zone, I found my new spot, the Oak Barrel Inn. Not too high class, but not a total dive either. It had clean sheets, hot water, and best of all, it was 40 copper coins per night, including hot baths and breakfast. Deal locked. I grabbed a room on the second floor with a window, giving me a clear view of the street down below. That way, if things went south, I could jump out and make a run for it. Old habits die hard. I washed away 3 solid days of blood, sweat, and pure existential dread. Threw on fresh clothes and headed downstairs. I ordered up some sausages, dark bread, and warm fruit wine, then asked the innkeeper if he had a map of the city. That'll cost you 5 silver, he said. I almost spit my fruit wine all over his counter. 5 silver? Was this map printed on pure gold? 5 silver meant 500 coppers. Back in Blackstone Town, that could buy 3 entire months of bread. And he wanted that for a single piece of paper? The innkeeper, a dwarf with a bright red nose, didn't even flinch. Instead, he hit me with that classic. Oh, you're just a clueless country bumpkin. Look. A look I'd probably be getting a lot in this place. It's an official military survey map, pal, he added. It even marks the sewer entrances all across Frostwind City. Information is the most expensive thing you can buy. My face went through about 7 distinct stages of grief. Part of me just wanted to walk away. My wallet was practically screaming at me to walk away. But my brain quickly calculated the risk of wandering around a massive, unfamiliar city completely blind versus coughing up 5 silver for a full detailed map. And the logic won out. Fine. I counted out 5 silver coins, looking like a man reluctantly handing over his own kidney, slapped them onto the counter, snatched the map, and sat down in a quiet corner to unfold it beneath the oil lamp. Honestly, it was worth every painful coin because the detail was insane. The business districts, noble estates, slums, military sectors, and guild halls, everything was fully labeled and color-coded. I dragged my finger across the parchment, skipping past the wealthy neighborhoods and seats of power, until it stopped right at a symbol in the Northern District. The Ranger Guild. After everything I'd been through, the trial in the forest, the bloody convoy massacre, watching Ryan swing a blade powerful enough to split the earth itself, and seeing a warlock nearly wipe an entire camp off the map with a single spell, I realized one thing with absolute clarity. My self-taught Bush League wilderness survival skills had a hard limit. A ridiculously low limit when stacked against real pros. Sure, my cheap tricks and tag-enchanted abilities were impressive. For some kid from the backwoods, but they were a joke on the big stage. I needed real training, legitimate combat techniques, and a proper professional class. The kind of power that could turn talented amateur into a genuine threat. First thing tomorrow morning, I folded up the map, stashed it away, and gazed out the window at Frostwind City's darkening skyline. The wind was howling through the towers, with lights flickering across 1,000 windows. Somewhere up there, powerful figures were making calls that could ruin lives. Without giving it a second thought, Blackstone Town was just survival. But this city? This is the real game. And I just paid for my entrance pass with 5 wildly overpriced silver coins. Morning rolled around in Frostwind City, a thick fog still lingering in the air, smelling of crisp pine and damp earth. Following my ridiculously expensive map, I navigated through the market sector, toward the city's northern side, right where the military grounds start. Every building in this area screams, "We will crush you." Massive stone strongholds, harsh angles, and absolute zero personality. And smack in the middle of all this hyper-macho architecture sits the Ranger Guild. It's basically a colossal wooden structure sprouting right out of the mountain. The main pillars aren't even actual columns. They're 2 ancient trees, so ancient and intertwined that their branches weave a natural canopy right over the front entrance. The whole place looks like a fantasy treehouse, crafted by an architect who thought. Interior walls were completely unnecessary. Bold choice of interior design, though it probably saved him a fortune on raw materials. I pushed open the heavy oak doors, and all the city noise instantly vanished, as if someone had literally muted reality. The inside was straight up an indoor forest, kept alive by magic, a high, arched ceiling draped with bioluminescent vines, hanging down like living chandeliers. Unfamiliar flowers filled the air with sweet scents, and I could hear running water nearby. Honestly, if a luxury spa in the deep wilderness had a kid, this place would be it, right in the middle of the main hall. Massive floating leaves, resembling oversized banana leaves hovering midair, were projecting magical footage of various ranger combat styles. It was basically the fantasy version of a job fair, complete with live-action demos. I picked up the newcomer's class manual for a single silver coin, a thick, hefty book wrapped in sheepskin leather. I found a tree stump to sit down on, and yeah, the seating here is literally tree stumps. These guys are 100% committed to the aesthetic. I cracked it open and started reading. It's the first time I've actually gotten a proper breakdown of how this world's class system functions. Warriors, knights, mages, rangers, wanderers, and druids. Each class specializes in key primary attributes. Warriors dump points into strength and constitution. Mages go all in on intelligence and spirit, while rangers stack agility and perception, which happen to be my highest stats. Nice. Looks like I accidentally min-maxed the perfect build. However, selecting your class is merely the first step. The real game changer comes down to picking your school. And man, the choices are completely overwhelming. Glancing up at the floating holographic displays, I saw a Beast King Ranger in leather armor just whistle. And suddenly 2 massive Black Panthers ripped a monster to shreds for him. He didn't even bother drawing a weapon, just stood there looking effortlessly cool, while his beast handled the entire fight. Talk about the ultimate lazy man's build. Then there's the Arcane Bow Ranger, wielding a glowing blue longbow and unleashing arrows laced with intense ice and fire magic. It put on a total fireworks display, visually stunning and absolutely lethal. This flashy special effects build looks incredible, though it probably burns through mana faster than I chug water. Still, there were plenty of others like the Thousand Mechanism, rangers who set up intricate mechanical traps, playing the field like a tower defense match, or the Blade. How rangers, who dual-wield swords and jump right into melee combat, like they completely forgot they're supposed to be range fighters. And then the Shadow Rangers, who master stealth tactics and high lethal assassinations. With over a dozen schools to digest, my head was spinning, until one specific listing caught my eye, the Silver Star Ranger. The icy glint reflecting off the arrowhead flashes for only a split second. This path demands absolute, unrivaled speed against the enemy. Every shot is nothing more than a silver blur, resembling a shooting star tearing across the night sky. Breathtaking for a single instant, and that instant spells immediate death. A rapid-fire shooting school. My hand completely froze on the page. Images of old John came flooding back, that grumpy drunkard, a lonely old man, who sat atop his rundown roof every clear night, quietly polishing a bow that was never quite good enough, gazing at the stars as if they owed him an answer. He never uttered a word about his past. Yet, right in his final moments, those hazy eyes still burned with a fierce desire that almost made it look. A look that haunted my mind worse than any monster ever could. The Silver Star Ranger, that was his life's dream. The goal he missed by a single hair. The one he passed away, still desperately reaching for. Closing the guidebook, I stood up and marched directly over to the professional exam. Registration desk. A massive line of anxious rookie adventurers had already formed, all of them newly arrived in the big city. Their expressions kept shifting endlessly between, "I'm going to be a legend," and "I'm about to throw up." You see, you can't learn specialized school techniques without passing the official certification test first and earning your credentials as a recognized ranger. If you don't, your only alternative is the Apprentice Academy right next door, where they charge you a fortune just to teach you stuff. "I already know." "Next," shouted the counter receptionist, a middle-aged guy wearing thick glasses, with absolutely zero enthusiasm for human contact. He scanned me up and down with the soul-crushed vibe of someone who's watched 10,000 starry-eyed kids pass by and knows most of them won't make the cut. "I'm here to sign up for the Ranger exam," I stated. "The registration fee comes to 10 gold coins. No refunds if you fail." I almost bit my tongue right off hearing that. 10 gold coins? I literally just survived a bloody convoy ambush, brawled with elite assassins, watched people get vaporized by hellfire, and brushed shoulders with death 3 whole times on the way here. And my total payout was 15 gold. This exam eats 10? You might as well just mug people in broad daylight. It'd be way more honest. The clerk didn't even bat an eye. It was painfully obvious he'd heard this exact same breakdown 400 times today. Standard rate across the entire continent of Aresa. He casually pointed toward a notice board. Being a ranger is a prestigious calling. Any random Joe who picks up a bow and calls himself a ranger is nothing more than an archer. This fee covers the venue, the examiner, and acts as a filter to keep out time wasters. Then came the real gut punch. It's per attempt. If you fail, that's another 10 gold just to try again. This isn't a test. This is organized robbery with a printed receipt. Yet, the harsh reality was impossible to ignore. Sure, I can easily solo Tier 2 monsters now. But Tier 3 bosses? They never roll alone. They always have swarms of minions with them. And I'm lacking any area of effect skills. I'm forced to pick them off one by one, like playing a game of whack-a-mole using a sniper rifle. By the time I exhaust myself clearing out the bodyguards, the actual boss fight kicks off, and I'm already running on fumes. I need new skills, legit, high-level techniques. And this 10 gold shakedown is my only ticket through the door. Can't catch the wolf if you won't risk the bait. As the old saying goes. Fine. My hands were shaking as I counted out 10 gold pieces and slammed them down on the counter. The clinking of that metal was equal parts music and agony, sounding like my wallet's final death rattle. "Very good." The clerk scooped up my cash with practiced indifference, handed over a numbered token, and pointed down the corridor. "Head straight back. Your exam number is 36. I stared down at my suddenly feather-light coin pouch. I walked into the city with 15 gold and some spare change. Map, -5 silver. Instay, -40 copper. Food, minus a few extra copper. Exam fee, -10 whole gold. I've been in Frostwind City for less than 24 hours, and this town has already bled me dry, far more efficiently than every monster and bandit I've ever faced put together. Still, somewhere in the back of my mind, I could picture an old drunk sitting on a broken rooftop, gazing up at the stars. Time to crush this exam. Old man, for both of our sakes. Out on the open-air archery range. The biting autumn wind cut straight through my armor. First up, moving targets. Group 1, step up. 5 of us lined up right behind the white marker. Down the field, a 100-meter rail system stood ready. No warm-up speech, no motivational talk. Just a harsh screech of gears grinding, and 20 target discs, launching sideways at near-galloping speeds. The other 4 archers frantically began doing the math, trying to factor in lead distance, wind drift, and flight arcs. As for me, I just asked the wind to guide my shot. I immediately activated guerrilla archery. A swirling blue-green breeze began coiling around my fingers, flowing straight down the string to embrace the arrow. With a sharp twang, the arrow didn't just fly straight. It carved a tight microcurve right through the air. The wind auto-corrected its path, giving it GPS-guided, heat-seeking missile precision. The disc was still sliding when my arrow hit it, nailing a perfect dead-center bullseye. The second arrow hit a bullseye, then the third, and the fourth. Every single one landed in the center ring, without me moving an inch. I didn't take a single step, remaining completely still, looking like a statue that occasionally sniped targets. Meanwhile, the half-elf beside me had completely emptied his quiver and failed to land a single hit. He stared at me like I had just pulled off pure witchcraft, which, to be fair, I basically had. Number 36, pass. Number 33, pass. Everyone else is disqualified. Leave immediately. Only 2 out of 5 made it. A brutal 60% failure rate. On what was supposed to be the easy part, that 10 gold entrance fee was starting to look less like a scam and more like a pretty effective filter for amateurs. I stepped right through the heavy iron door at the back of the firing range, knowing the true test was waiting on the other side. Welcome to Stage 2, the combat simulation corridor. Past that doorway was a massive indoor arena, giving off the feeling of stepping inside a colossal whale. A winding path snaked into the distance, surrounded by alchemical pipes and glowing runic spell circles. A red-haired female examiner stood high on an elevated platform, pointing down toward the course layout. The rules are simple. Sprint from here to the finish line, within a strict 5-minute limit. You must step on every pressure light on the floor. As each light triggers target spawns, eliminate all enemy targets. And if you hit more than 2 civilian decoys, you fail instantly. She paused, wearing a smirk, resembling a cat eyeing a bowl of goldfish. Best of luck, future rangers. Beep. I rocketed off the starting line, channeling wind energy beneath my feet, practically hydroplaning across the stone floor, like a leaf swept up in a hurricane. Just 50 meters in, the corridor immediately tried to kill me. Whoosh! This wasn't any ordinary breeze. It was industrial-strength chaos, generated by massive mechanical bellows and wind magic circles. Flanking both sides of the path, these gale force crosswinds were powerful enough to make even standing upright a struggle, let alone aiming a bow. I reached the first light marker and slammed my foot down. Instantly, 3 red hostile targets popped out of the walls, while violent sidewinds actively tried to blow my arrows directly back into my face. You expect me to shoot in these conditions? For normal marksmanship, it would be impossible. The shaft would corkscrew wildly off course the second it cleared the bowstring. However, my arrows were far from ordinary gear. My resonance allowed me to feel every pulse of the string amidst the gale, reading the precise rhythm of the wind straight through the bow itself. If the storm wanted to push against me, I just sliced right through it. Channeling guerrilla archery, I enveloped the entire arrow shaft in concentrated wind mana, twisting into a tight, deadly spiral that turned the arrow into a literal drill made of pure wind. Twang. The projectile screamed straight through the crosswind, acting like it was personally insulted by the interference. That massive gale, which would have sent any normal shot crashing right into the wall, got completely torn apart by the spiral pressure. My arrow punched clean through the first target's neck, then the second, and gave the third the exact same treatment. Every single shot was a wind-slicing missile. I sprinted through the wind zone like it was nothing but a gentle breeze, and behind me, I could practically sense the course. Designer losing their mind in confusion. Next zone, total fog. Everything went completely white, and my visibility plummeted to barely 2 meters. This thick fog was even absorbing sound, leaving no echoes, no sense of direction, absolutely nothing. Just a milky wall of absolute emptiness, with red markers blinking somewhere up ahead. Now, most people would be stumbling around blind, banging into walls, and getting completely caught off guard by targets popping up right in their faces. Luckily for me, my skill tree is absolutely stacked. Weakness. Insight immediately dissolved the fog under my enhanced vision, breaking the mist down into floating, translucent particles. Behind that white curtain, every hidden mechanism, every single spring-loaded trap, and every concealed target lit up with neon outlines. Looking straight up like a video game cheat overlay, I ripped through the fog zone like a man on a mission, pre-aiming at targets that hadn't even popped up yet. The gears would click, and before the dummy could even fully stand upright, my arrow was already planted right between its eyes, shuffled right in with the monster targets. Were civilian decoys, wooden dummies carved like mothers holding babies, old men leaning on canes, and helpless kids, all designed to trigger panic shooters and force them to burn through their limited mistake quota. Too bad I could see every single one of them crystal clear thanks to my vision skill. An arrow would slice right past a mother and child wooden dummy, grazing close enough to blow back its carved hair, only to nail the axe-wielding goblin target, crouched right behind it. This whole test was meant to measure your awareness, trigger discipline, and target identification under extreme stress. But honestly, I was playing it, with the full answer key literally glued to my screen. Then came the final zone. The fog instantly cleared, only to be replaced by pure sand. And it wasn't just wind. This was a raging sandstorm packed with actual gravel. Tiny rocks were pelting my face like a shotgun blast from Mother Nature. And opening my eyes meant instant blindness with a side of involuntary crying. Even my weakness. Insight was starting to get completely scrambled. There were just way too many flying particles and visual noise everywhere, causing my visual overlay to flicker with heavy static. Man, these instructors really aren't messing around. So I just closed my eyes, shielded my mouth and nose using wind energy, and rolled with it. Can't see? Fine by me. Blind fight sword techniques don't rely on sight anyway. The skill tracks air currents, not visual cues. And even though I was holding a bow instead of blade, the underlying sensory principles carried over perfectly. The sound of sand grains slapping against wooden boards? That's a target. Spring coils shifting into place. That's a launch. The faint whistle of a wooden frame, cutting right through the raging storm. That's an incoming target at my left 3 o'clock. Something massive just popped right out. Sounds like a target wielding a heavy shield. Twang. A sharp crack of splintering with hits on the right side. Light and nimble, a faint sound of friction. Rapid movement. Twang. I was practically at the finish line when I caught something insanely faint, completely buried under the noise of the storm. As light as a startled bird taking flight. My body reacted before my brain even could. Pure instinct. I flagged it as a high-agility assassin target. And my fingers let loose. Twang, thunk. That wasn't the sharp sound of a combat target shattering. It was a soft, muffled impact, followed by a mechanical voice. Ah, save me. I forced my eyes open against the stinging sandstorm. My arrow was stuck right in the shoulder of a tiny beggar, a puppet dressed in rags. It was a civilian decoy. Its deployment had been perfectly masked by the blustering sandstorm. In a window to spot, it was insanely tiny. TCH, I fell for the bait. The exam creators placed that there, specifically, to trip up anyone relying solely on sound detection. In the final stretch, it was the one trap tailored to counter my exact strategy. Respect, though I absolutely hate it. Still respect. One error down, but the rules grant two. I'm still in the game. No time to waste on regret. A surge of wind burst right under my feet, and I propelled forward straight through the sand. Taking one last leap into the air, I twisted mid-flight and fired backward at the massive boss target, standing right in front of the finish line. Boom! The boss target blew apart into tiny splinters. Just like that, all the wind, fog, and sand instantly vanished. The massive dome lights flared to life, making my eyes water from the sudden, blinding flash. Examination complete, the red-haired Proctor's voice boomed right across the entire arena. There I stood, right on the finish line, covered in dust and sand, feeling pretty annoyed about that beggar decoy, and glanced up at the massive scoreboard. Número 36. Time, for minutes, 12 seconds. Pass. Target ring accuracy average, 8.6. Pass. Civilian casualties, 1. Pass. Overall evaluation, passed. Phew. Those 10 gold coins were officially safe. The overwhelming relief hit me harder than any sandstorm could. 4 straight minutes of running while pushing every skill to the cap had completely drained my energy. Honestly, by that last section, my stamina was running low. This trial was no joke. It tested sight, hearing, instincts, environmental adaptability, target identification, and physical endurance all at once. If I had been lacking even a single one of my buffed abilities, I would have failed somewhere along the line. A staff member escorted me into a waiting area so I could catch my breath. Then a high elf. A legitimate high elf, mind you. Tall and elegant. Pointed ears, the whole deal. Stepped inside and handed me a badge. It was silver, engraved with crossed arrows over a leaf, with my name and candidate number stamped on the back. Congratulations, Victor. From this moment on, you are now officially a guild-certified apprentice ranger. I ran my thumb across the ice-cold metal surface, taking in its heavy weight and the sheer reality of the moment. An apprentice ranger, officially certified and legit. Poor old John spent his entire life rotting on a broken roof, just dreaming about this, yet here I am holding it at 16. Thank you. I pinned a new badge right beside my silver adventurer emblem and stepped out into the bright sunlight. Though honestly, if they could just refund that ridiculous 10 gold registration fee, this exact second would be absolute perfection. Then again, I guess you really can't put a price tag on a dream. Actually, scratch that. You totally can, and it costs 10 gold coins. Those total scammers on the second floor of the Ranger Guild. Cut to me, staring down at a piece of parchment that reads, Apprentice Ranger, and oh, what's this? Remaining free class hours, 5. 5 free training sessions bundled with my 10 gold payment. And just like that blatant highway robbery feels a tiny bit less criminal. It's like getting mugged, but the robber hands you bus fare home. See, back in Blackstone Town, learning any new skill always meant either working as someone's unpaid slave for 5 long years, or buying shady, second-hand skill scrolls that were most likely scribbled by a drunkard. But here, I actually had an entire menu. The course selection was massive. Mid-level, arrow, trajectory correction, trap setup and assembly, monster encyclopedia, and weakness analysis. Yet I knew instantly what I needed to pick first. Intro to Ranger Knowledge and Career Path Planning, costing 1 single class hour. Because here's my dirty little secret. Everything I know about this world comes straight from a dead old man's shattered memories and the wild boasts of wasted adventurers in taverns. My actual grasp on how this world operates basically has more holes than a block of Swiss cheese. Knowledge is power, people. The room itself was tiny, barely 30 square meters, crammed with battered wooden desks. Only 3 students showed up in total. Myself, a red-headed young hunter with calloused hands, who practically radiated clueless farm boy, and a creepy, gloomy middle-aged guy with a razor-sharp dagger strapped to his hip, reeking like he'd been sleeping in a gutter. Yup, this was the exact kind of low-tier class that rich snobs and legacy kids would never be caught dead in. Our instructor was Hammond, a veteran ranger who was missing his entire left ear, speaking with a thick, heavily nasal voice, perched on the teacher's desk like he owned the place, while casually flipping a silver coin between his fingers. First off, congrats, rookies, he grunted, scanning the room. He paused a second extra on Sewer Guy and let out a snort. That badge means you're no longer homeless bums, digging around in the dirt. You actually have the guild's backing now. Then, he proceeded to drop absolute knowledge bombs that were worth way more than 10 gold coins. The continent of Arsha consists of 6 human kingdoms, our very own Rosario Kingdom, the Frost Iron Union up north, and 4 other realms. Across all of them, official class holders hold a significantly higher social status. The Ranger Guild handles all the training and skill inheritance, while the Adventurers Association acts as the platform that lets you turn those specialized skills into cold, hard cash. They're business partners, not rivals. And the absolute best part? That apprentice badge. If you take that straight to the Adventurers Guild, you can instantly register as an official silver rank adventurer. The red-headed kid's eyes practically lit up with pure excitement. Honestly, even I was pretty surprised. Normally, reaching silver rank takes months of back-breaking grind, knocking out at least 50 E-rank quests plus passing a brutal exam. I literally just suffered through that hellish nightmare back in Whisper Forest, and these privileged guild kids get to skip the whole process just by showing off a single emblem. That's the power of certified rank. Hammond noted casually. As a true pro, you unlock access to the guild's second floor, where you can pick up real contracts, hunt high-tier monsters, and explore ancient ruins for fat payouts in pure gold. He then broke down the guild's internal hierarchy. Apprentice, senior, executive, and master. A master-level ranger can literally drop a lesser dragon with a single well-placed arrow. While this course didn't teach active combat skills, the tactical knowledge it provided was priceless. I finally got a clear picture of this world's power structure, professional perks, guild regulations, and most importantly, where the real money was hiding. Next up was choosing a specialization school. Hammond explained that most professionals focus on mastering just one school, maybe dipping their toes into a second one at best. I took a quick look through my current skill set and realized something utterly hilarious. My guerrilla archery style is basically the arcane bow school. My blind fighting swordsmanship mirrors the blade howl school, and my deep connection with the forest matches the beast king school domain. Without even realizing these formal disciplines existed, I had accidentally built myself into a multi-classed ranger. I was essentially a walking sampler platter of every school, a jack of all trades, master of none. But with my cheat system, I didn't need to master them through normal training anyway. All I needed was to grab the basic skills, register them on my panel, and stack them with overpowered tags until they evolved into absolute monstrosities. To me, these formal schools were just starter seeds for my cheat fuel garden. For my remaining 4 hours of class, I carefully chose my path. Top priority, Ranger basic breathing technique, taking up 3 whole class hours. This was the exact thing I had been envious of. Ever since I saw Orion pull off that insane golden battle aura. Sword Strike. Warriors and knights use specialized breathing methods to elevate their vital energy to crazy new heights. As it turns out, rangers have their own unique version, and I desperately needed it. My biggest handicap in prolonged fights has always been my stamina, completely running out of gas whenever combat dragged on. Day 2 brought me to an underground meditation chamber where our instructor, a white-haired half-elf elder, exuded an aura that practically screamed, "I've been alive longer than your entire country." He began his lecture. Breathing is the bridge connecting your body to the world itself. Sense the subtle particles drifting in the air around you. Don't just inhale with your lungs. Breathe through your skin, your pores, and your very willpower. During class 1, I sat cross-legged until my legs went completely numb, feeling absolutely nothing except pure exhaustion and hunger. To make matters worse, my system panel gave me zero response. Absolutely nothing. Am I really just an untalented ranger? Class 2, and I'm still swinging at thin air. Meanwhile, the red-haired kid right beside me was already making headway. His face lit up with excitement. And then there's me, trying to picture airflow as a slithering snake, and almost giving myself a stroke in the process. I even popped weakness. Insight to sneak a peek at the instructor's internal mana flow, only to nearly faint from how insane it was. It was like trying to figure out basic plumbing by staring at a nuclear reactor's cooling system. Class 3, the final session. I threw all that mystical visualization nonsense out the window and went full brute force. I literally memorized the instructor's exact breathing rhythm. Every single count, every millimeter of his chest expanding. Then I popped equipment resonance, yep, that weapon ability, to mimic the exact vibration patterns going on inside his body through pure mechanical copying. Was it elegant? No. Was it spiritual? No. Just a guy duplicating the answer key with a copy machine. And right at the very end, as I let out a long breath, a tiny spark of warmth welled up in my gut, traveled up my spine about 3 inches, and completely sputtered out. Yet the interface flashed. Rangers. Basic breathing technique. Status. Unlearned. Your weak attempts are only giving you slight oxygen deprivation and lightheadedness. Your lungs are still trying to adjust to this bizarre rhythm. The only noticeable effect is that you look impressively profound and thoughtful whenever you inhale deeply. Proficiency. 1/100. One measly point. My system is roasting me once again. But I was grinning like a total idiot. Because 1 point is all I need. Here's the beautiful secret behind my cheat system. The skill doesn't even have to be good. It literally just needs to show up on the status board. The moment it appears, I can load it up with tags and let the enhancement system pull off what decades of deep meditation never could. Can't master breathing through spiritual enlightenment? Fine by me. I'll just cram a few monster souls straight into the skill slot and make them do all the heavy breathing for me. This realization made me figure out 2 crucial facts. First, without my system, Victor is nothing more than a mid-tier, unremarkable nobody who can't even feel magic particles in the air. After 3 full classes. Second, this universe is infinitely deeper and far more intricate than I ever gave it credit for. However, as long as the system registers a skill, I don't care how pathetic my proficiency score looks. I can totally hack my way to God-tier mastery. Who gives a damn where you start? When you got a jet engine strapped to your back. Final class hour. Ranger's basic footwork. The instructor? A halfling whose feet were faster than my flying arrows. Standing barely 3 feet tall, hopping across wooden training pillars as if gravity was just a friendly suggestion. Rangers don't tank damage. Footwork is about riding with momentum, never fighting it. He then demonstrated the forest weave step, an agile movement technique built for lightning-fast direction changes across rough, complex terrain, combining my previous guerrilla archery displacement experience. I was already built with the muscle memory for high speed. Repositioning, I was really just missing the proper technique. After just 1 practice run, the wind, energy flowing through my legs locked into perfect harmony with my strides. My body instinctively executed the moves before my mind could even process it. Forest weave step, currently below beginner level. When navigating dense, forested areas, unskilled footwork won't boost your movement speed at all. In fact, it makes you far more prone to tripping over stray roots than you were previously. Proficiency. 4 out of 10. For full points gained in a single training attempt. Sure, the system rates my current ability as total trash, but gaining those 4 points proves the foundation has been set. That's 2 brand new abilities unlocked, both sitting below beginner rank, and both ready to be force-fed monster attributes, until they evolve into something absolutely terrifying. I stepped out of the Ranger Guild building, just as the enchanted streetlights throughout Frostwind City began to glow, feeling the cool silver emblem sitting in my pocket. It was time to head over to the Adventurers Association. Time to locate some high-value targets to hunt down. Right now, my breathing method and footwork are just starving, low-level skills. So, let's go hunt down something to feed them.